welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys have been enjoying your weekend. Back at it with this week's episode of Astro Weather, and we're going to be talking about the astrology for the next week, for the week of November 10th through the 17th, 2024. Do not forget to click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, let everybody know about the videos. Sharing is caring. And if you guys would like, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment in the comments below and let me know what you're most excited about for the transits for the next week. Obviously, the major headline is Venus enters the sign of Capricorn. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today, on top of the day-by-day transits, taking a look at the moon and what's going on in the skies. And we've got a lot of stuff kind of going on. So just as a reminder for you guys, I just want to let you know we are generally here on Fridays. We do live readings, so you guys can catch me this week. I will be doing full moon in Taurus readings on Friday. So those full moons and new moons are always really busy. If you guys want to get a reading, check out my community tab early. You'll see the link that's provided for the live show, and you guys can reserve your spot if you want to get a reading and ask questions about your natal chart or what's going on with this up and coming full moon. Also, it's November, so we are now into getting ready for the holiday season. I always have my astrology calendars ready for you guys in the fall for the upcoming year, so you guys can find this now live on the website. We have a beautiful, like heavy stock printed version. We also have a digital version. 12 months of all of the astrology transits, the major ingresses, as well as a little bit about the 12 signs. I'm going to give you guys some herbal ritual recommendations, gemstone recommendations, and there is a QR code where you can actually scan and get a 3-card tarot reading and get some insight about the month ahead. Brand new format. There's lots of new stuff that's going to be in this, and this year the theme is the Astro Goddesses. So I hope you guys really like these. All right, so with that being said, here are the major points that we're going to be looking at for the video today for the week ahead. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of excited. This is Pluto's last week hanging out in the sign of Capricorn. So we are going to be seeing closer to the 19th, Pluto will be entering into Aquarius, where it's going to stay for the better part of the next 20 years. But this is the last full week that we're going to have with this energy. So we are wrapping up all of the themes revolving around kind of breakdown and rebirth and working through some kind of heavy burdens and challenges and blockages that we've been dealing with since 2008. I really recommend, if you guys haven't seen it, go and check out my Pluto in Capricorn webinar. I talk about all 12 signs, what you're wrapping up, what you're finishing. By now, most of us are kind of seeing what's completing in the Capricorn area of our life before Pluto moves into Aquarius, but this is like the final moment. So especially for those of you guys who are Scorpio risings or Capricorn placements, this is a really big transit for you guys, as well as any personal planets right around the 28, 29 degrees of the cardinal sign. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. They are passing the torch, basically. The Capricorns are passing the torch now to Aquarians, who are going to be going through this major transformative period. And then we're going to see, the fixed signs that are going to be kind of feeling that. So, 0 to about 2 degrees of the fixed signs, maybe even 3 in this next year. You guys will all be kind of under a Pluto transit. So I'll be putting together something on the ingress for you guys soon, but just know there's something wrapping up in that area of your chart. Now, Venus is entering Capricorn, which is kind of interesting because Pluto is about kind of that grand finale, especially at 29 degrees, like that big ending. And then we have Venus coming in, and Venus is, goddess of love and beauty, harmony, socializing, art, resources. And so this is really interesting to see Pluto getting ready to leave, and then Venus is coming in. So it's almost like something is ending and Venus is coming in, and she's adding that sweetness to that area of your life, or she's bringing some kind of abundance maybe even some type of gift, or there is some kind of reward that comes from making the necessary changes. We're going to talk a little bit about Venus in Capricorn today. So if you happen to have a natal Venus in Capricorn, you might appreciate some of the stuff we're going to kind of talk about. But Venus transits bring sweetness, right? And even though it's moving through a Saturn sign, it's moving through a feminine sign. It's moving through also a sign where it's going to be making some nice aspects actually to Saturn, which is going to be waking up this week. We're actually going to see the Saturn retrograde end. So that adds a little bit more oomph to the Venus transit. And it definitely helps stabilize things like love, money, and our relationships. Now we're going to have like a holy cow moment, okay? This full moon that we're going to be having this week in the sign of Taurus is a big one. This is going to be a full moon where, the moon in Taurus is exalted. It is all about pleasure and resources and indulgence and money and security and all these like beautiful earthly things associated with Venus and Taurus. But it is going to be in very close proximity to Uranus. So there's going to be some rocking, rattling, and rolling going on. Some sudden insights, electrifying situations, fluctuations, changes, things coming out of left field. And that will be happening pretty much the full moon and the day after as the sun comes into an opposition with Uranus and Taurus. Now, Uranus is still retrograde, so a lot of these things are going to be sudden epiphanies, realizations, things that have been held back or that we haven't been aware of. It can also be lots of internal kind of shifts and changes that are going on as well. But just know when we see a full moon conjunct Uranus, it means there's going to be sudden emotional upsets, and it can mean we get shocked and surprised in a good way, but it can also mean that there are some shocking and surprising things kind of happening out in the world. We're having some kind of emotional, kind of breakaway moment, or, we're high on kind of emotional shock. So that's going to be kind of part of that full moon. Check out my full moon in Taurus video. I put that out for you guys last week, so you have some insight as to how to navigate that. In spite of the Uranus aspect, there's some really nice other things kind of brewing in the midst of that full moon. So if you guys want to know how that's going to impact you or the 12 rising signs, you can always check out the full moon video as well as the November 2024 horoscopes. Now, like I said, it's followed by a Sun-Uranus opposition, so that full moon's going to kick for about a day or two. And so those might be days that you're going to want to kind of schedule your schedule a little bit lighter. And then we're going to be finishing the week basically with some mutable madness. I remember telling you guys in my November monthlies, and I said to you, with some of the transits that we're going to see with Mercury going through the sign of Sagittarius, where in a positive light, it's optimistic, it's expansive, it's very focused on the bigger picture, and it feels motivated and inspired. But, it has a tendency to overlook some of the smaller details. It has a tendency sometimes to tell big tales, tell tall tales, hello, tongue-tied. And it also gives us, I think, sometimes some challenges revolving around kind of wrangling some of these ideas and making them a reality. So without getting kind of like too deep into it, we've got Mercury that's in its fall in Sag, where, it's kind of like believing anything is possible. And it's in opposition to Jupiter and Gemini, also in its fall, where it has a tendency to kind of make things maybe sound better than they should. Maybe we get too hyper, focused on one thing, and then we start something else, and we're kind of juggling, and it's hard to kind of pay attention. And we are going to see a mutual reception between these two, Mercury in a Jupiterian sign, Jupiter in a Mercurial sign. And we are in the shadows. So we're in the shadow of Mercury retrograde. So you guys are going to be experiencing this week the transits that will be kind of reworked and kind of backtrack, kind of brought up through the backtracking of Mercury in the retrograde at the end of the month. So I'm calling this mutable madness. Communication seems bigger. News, breaks are bigger. Things being blown out of proportion. Information potentially being questionable, right? Because mutable squares are like, wait, what's changing? And when we see squares to Saturn, there are some delays and challenges in communication and communication blockages, actually. Followed by, then we start to see it come into a square with Neptune right before it retrogrades. And it's like, wait a second, is this even real? So you guys got to really pay attention this week. Read the fine print. Be very careful with scheduling travel. I wish I could like get out my megaphone and say this to everybody, but I am seeing major transits that are going to be impacting our ability to travel, specifically air travel, because Sagittarius represents airplanes and things revolving around further distances, international travel. Sagittarius also deals with things like colleges, professors, themes revolving around higher education, culture, diversity. So as we start to see Mercury turning retrograde, opposing Jupiter, squaring Saturn, we're going to hear lots of, I think, scholars and like legal people, you know, basically giving their input revolving around, you know, the direction of where, you know, we are all going in regards to immigration, in regards to traveling, in regards also to the future of education. All of these things, because the retrograde will be in this sign, are going to be up for, you know, reevaluation. But the path forward seems confusing. It seems also very kind of muddied. There could be some cloudiness going on revolving around communication with people and places in other cultures. There can be some translation issues, you know, the list goes on. So I know I've been saying this over and over, but now this is the week that you guys are going to start to feel it. So take time to really read through the details. Be cautious and careful about trying to push communication or trying to push ahead timelines. Leave extra time to kind of get around time and get places, and be mindful that there is a process that we're working through basically November into December, where we are going back, reevaluating what it is that we believe in, and what is fact from fiction. And what's so interesting about this is that Gemini is more the data, right? Gemini is the information. It's like a fax machine that's reading stuff out. It's like an email that you receive. It's very literal. And I think about social media and the connection to Gemini and anything that you can read at the palm of your hand. And so then the opposition to Jupiter, between Jupiter and Mercury, is kind of like where we're learning to kind of take the bigger picture, and also we're reworking about how we communicate and like how we're assessing information. And the squares to Saturn, I think, is going to be this huge record scratch moment in November and December, where a lot of us are waking up and we're realizing, holy cow, like what I thought was true may not be, or what I have believed in may potentially be a little off or skewed, or, oh my goodness, I've been in an echo chamber and I've been believing everything that I have been hearing from a certain source. It could be, you know, the friends you hang out with, right? It could be the news that you watch. It could be the social media that you're on. And definitely with the squares to Saturn, we're going to be asking ourselves, like, why haven't we received this information? Or like, why didn't we get clarity on this, you know, issue? Or like, where are the adults in the room? And so there's going to be lots of conversation revolving around freedom of speech, you know, relaying information, traveling, learning. And I think just like reassessing anything revolving around our belief systems. So it's gonna be a process that's gonna unfold really from like mid-month all the way through December, but it's gonna be starting pretty soon. So that is the Reader's Digest version. I want to get into talking to you guys just really briefly about Venus in Capricorn. That is going to be the big transit that I'm focusing on for this week. Now, basically, you know, Venus changing signs, this is going to be impacting everyone, right? Especially considering Venus is the ruler of the South Node. So when we look at the South Node in Libra, at least until the beginning of 2025, until the nodes change signs, we're really focusing on, okay, South Node, what we are remembering from the past, what we are kind of disconnecting from, maybe what we're moving away from or what we're outgrowing. For some of us, we can tap into the South Node and go, okay, there is some kind of support from the past, but we don't want to rely on that. So when Venus changes signs, it is going to be mirroring whatever is going on with the South Node. And so something that you will see that's going to be really interesting, I think, with the Venus in Capricorn transit is that genuinely, for the most part, there's some pretty nice aspects. There's nothing that's going to be entirely too heavy. We're going to see some nice aspects with Saturn, which is obviously the ruler or the dispositor of Venus, because Saturn is associated with Capricorn. which is going to support relationships. We are also going to be seeing Venus that is going to, come into a square with the north or south node. So there could definitely be some karmic stuff going on. And we will see Venus kind of wrap up her transit with a lot of contact with outer planets. At the end of the transit, she's going to trine Uranus, so there can be sudden changes in love and money. Sextile Neptune, so we can be more sympathetic, understanding, compassionate, feeling inspired. And then we're going to see Venus conjunct Pluto, which will be in Aquarius when this happens. So I'm very curious to see what this means for the future of love, business, relationships, money. Obviously, love and business is a huge theme when you kind of think about Capricorn, because it is a sign that's associated with like long-term goals, professional life, that kind of stuff. So you guys can find these dates. They're going to be in the description below, but I just wanted to show you like the key takeaways. Basically from November 11th through December 7th, 2024, Venus will be in Capricorn. So if you happen to be a natal Venus ruled chart, so if you are a Taurus or a Libra rising, your planetary ruler is on the move. So you want to be paying attention and hearing where that's going, and you'll know a little bit about where Venus is bringing you some sweetness or where you're going to be a little bit more active for the next couple of weeks. Equally for Capricorn placement, Sun, Moon, Rising, or if you have your Venus there, it will be your Venus return at some point throughout this transit. Basically, for you guys, it's a pretty good transit. It's great for beauty, updating your look, your aesthetic preferences, new hairstyles, things like that, and just attracting more love and like beauty into your life. So Venus has something sweet to offer everybody, but these three particular signs are going to be impacted by this the most. Now, like I said, on the 11th, this is when Venus enters into Capricorn, but we're not really going to see a significant transit involving Venus again until round about the 16th. So on the 16th, we're going to see Venus make her first real aspect, and this is going to be Venus coming into a square with the north and south node. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking also like the days leading up to this transit when Venus squares the nodes. In all honesty, Venus is making an inconjunct or a quincunx to Mars. Okay, so it is possible that, the 14th, the 15th, there is some sense of kind of feeling like there is something disjointed revolving around our long-term goals, responsibility, our public reputation, and also like our goals, like what we're, not so much our goals, because that's Capricorn. It's more like what we are creating, what the heart wants. I think of Leo as like, I want to play, I want to create, I want to have fun, I want to party. And then Capricorn's like, get back to work, So there can be some sense of feeling like we're being torn in two different directions, that there is maybe an emotional need or a physical, financial need to be super dedicated and focused on long-term goals and like commitments and relationships and being like a little bit more mature when it comes to how we're approaching these things. But in our heart space, the Mars and Leo is like, I just want to do these things, So they're kind of like rubbing each other the wrong way. Anyway, so that's like the 14th, the 15th, kind of leading up to that. We get to the 16th, and the first kind of major glaring aspect that I see is Venus square the north and the south node. So truth be told, I don't really feel like this is a bad transit. And you guys have heard me say good and bad is all relative. But Venus, any planet square the nodes, from an evolutionary standpoint, this basically means that we need to integrate the themes and the lessons of that particular planet. And it's expressed right through the sign that it's in. You see the theme come up in the house. So for example, Venus square the north and the south node means when it comes to Venus things, beauty, love, relationships, intimacy. It could also be about investments, luxury, goods, women, right? Femininity. And that is becoming something that's majorly highlighted. And when planets square the nodes, it means, okay, this is what we're coming away from. This is what we're moving away from. So we're moving away from, being complacent in relationships, maybe being lazy, being superficial, maybe staying with people for the sake of staying with them, maybe being indecisive, right? Maybe being people pleasing. we've been that. And now we're recognizing, okay, Venus in Capricorn, there is a new goal, right? When it comes to love, relationships, and money. And in order to facilitate that goal, we're going to have to make some changes. And Venus, thankfully, is at a 5. So Venus at a 5 is sexy, right? And not a lot of people would think of like Venus in Capricorn as like a sexy placement. But I do feel like whenever we see 5s, it's about drama and romance and boyfriends and girlfriends and back and forth. But also it can be about what's going on in our heart space and like what the heart wants. And it can be bringing out this very romantic kind of youthful energy. It can be about a huge turning point when it comes to our creative process, a huge turning point when it comes to a relationship with our inner child, perhaps even things that involve children. So, you know, it is possible with this aspect that we do kind of see like, hey, there can be some really significant turning points happening with relationships, with money, you know, with recognizing or realizing what we want in the long term because of that aspect. Now, we won't see anything else for a couple days. This will take us to about the 22nd of November. And on the 22nd, we then see Venus in Capricorn sextile Saturn. And so I'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but essentially, you know, my eyes are on Saturn throughout this transit because Saturn is the dispositor or kind of like the ruler of Venus. So there is something going on between Saturn and Pisces that's reflecting through Venus in Capricorn. We got a 12 here, which is very Piscean. 12s is always about behind the scenes, spiritual, you know, mystical, magical, dream world, but also things that go missing, things that dissolve, things that are hidden, conspiracy, things involving drugs or, you know, foreign things, you know, crazy people, mental health, things revolving around like that kind of stuff. And so what's interesting is like, not only are we looking at Saturn as the ruler and what's going on with Venus, but the day that Venus sextiles Saturn, both of them are at a 12. Okay, really big themes are going to come up revolving around what is not working, what needs to be revealed, what is dissolving or breaking down. Faith, I think, you know, and having trust and also being sympathetic and compassionate and understanding. That's going to be a huge theme. So having a really nice aspect, this is a Venusian aspect. A sextile is basically a friendly kind of leaning on each other, interacting, socializing. It brings pleasure. It comes with ease. So when we think of, you know, long-term goals and relationships or refined things, beautiful things, things that might, you know, have history or things that get better with age, right? Venus in Capricorn, it gets better with age. The sextile to Saturn is saying like, yes, you know, we can lean into that, you know, we can dream about a brighter future, or maybe we're feeling more sensual or emotionally connected. So I like the aspect. I'm not really worried about the 12s. I think that this is a day that you're probably going to want to listen to your intuition when it comes to, you know, romance, money, and relationship things. Now, the day you're going to want to watch for with the Venus in Capricorn transit, I think is going to be the 27th of November. And the reason why I say this is when we're going to see Venus come into a square with Chiron. And it does look like it's going to be a little bit later in the day. So it looks like it's going to hit around late PM hours, going into what will be the 28th, but it's going to be right at the end of the evening. So you'll feel it the 27th, 28th of November. Venus in a square with Chiron, okay? The pros, let's talk the positives. The pros are Venus is in a Saturn sign, okay? So Venus can handle some of the more difficult, limiting, you know, hardworking aspects of love and money. She can cover that. But the square to Chiron means that, you know, it comes at a price. There is a price to be paid on a personal level. It is possible. This is when individuals are not feeling the love, not feeling the support from superiors, from bosses, maybe from older relatives, senior people basically to them in their life. And this could also be representing like long-standing challenges in relationships and how like people are starting to feel the effects of them. maybe where, you know, there can be some challenges at work and, you know, the pressure that that's putting on individuals. Quite literally, I mean, Venus at a 19 square Chiron at a 19 is like where individuals are having issues, you know, with leadership or, you know, with government or political officials or with bosses, and like feeling like they haven't been cared for or taken care of or supported. This can also be where like people are really focusing on, you know, getting out, working, being productive, you know, kind of grinding and like bringing money in, and just the impact that that's having and like the wounding that that can be creating, and just feeling like completely, especially with Chiron retrograde, you know, not so connected to oneself and like feeling like they're suffering because they're kind of putting work before their own personal needs. Whenever we see Venus square Chiron, you know, wounding can come up in relationships, but it comes up for good reason. It's coming up for us to heal. And I do feel like with Venus in superior position to Chiron, it does mean that it is possible we can heal some of these long-standing like problems and issues that have been kind of hanging around for a little bit. Now on December the 2nd, we're going to see Venus come into a trine with Uranus. And this is like the turning point where then you're really going to start to see a lot of outer planet aspects with Venus. So pretty much from the 2nd all the way through the 7th, that whole week, we've got a lot of outer planet kind of connections. Venus in Capricorn making a trine to Uranus in Taurus. Now this will be at 24 degrees. Interesting. Yet another aspect that we are seeing in a Pisces degree. 12 and 24 are always Pisces if you follow degree theory. So those same themes of hidden, what's disappeared, you know, things that deal with behind the scenes topics, hospitals, medicine, pharmaceuticals, anything revolving around mental health, you know, that kind of stuff. So generally when Venus trines Uranus, there are good surprises, right? There are chance meetings. There can be love at first sight. We can, you know, hit the lottery. I mean, not everybody, but, you know, that can happen. We can see that there is just a sudden turn or sense of just like, you know, lightning striking, and, you know, we meet somebody, we make some money in some way. But Venus is also about relationships. It's about socializing. It's about connecting with other people. So Venus trine Uranus can be a really fun time for updating your style, hosting a party, you know, hanging out and going to dinner with your friends, maybe, you know, making some shifts in your investment strategy or anything like financial. So I do feel like this is positive, but once again, another day where you have to kind of lean into your intuition and go like, what do I feel like I need to be changing? And also like, what's my intuition telling me, or what are my dreams telling me? It is possible this can represent where there is some incoming potential changes or dissolving or shifts that are going to be happening, you know, professionally, Capricorn, or, you know, on a, you know, government, federal level, right? Or with leadership and the impact that that's going to be having on jobs, you know, financial matters, the economy, things revolving around also like, you know, Taurus is the stock market, or things revolving around the banking system. But for the most part, this is a fortuitous aspect, okay? I don't see it being something bad, but follow your gut when it comes to love and money. 2 days later, you will then see that the Venus in Capricorn transit will highlight now Venus coming into a sextile with Neptune. Another really lovely Venusian aspect. And what's interesting is on the 4th of December, when this happens, this is also simultaneous with a a Moon-Venus conjunction. So emotional, sensitive, generally is the moon, right? Sweet, loving, generally is Venus. And I see like the Moon Venus in Capricorn as being like, you know, the tough love transit, not being mean, but being like, I love you, but get it together, you know, or I love you, I'm showing you in a very kind of practical, mature like way, you know, this is what I got done for you type of thing. So, you know, could be great for those of you guys who are Capricorns, or those of you guys, you know, who have planets around those degrees. But this conjunction is saying like, you know, in order to have abundance or long-term resources or relationships that work, there is a need to lean into either, you know, like being more understanding, compassionate of other people, or there is a need to kind of dissolve, change, release, you know, let things go. That literally is Pisces in a nutshell. And with Neptune, could it bring up the other side of things where it is much more likely for us to be scammed and deceived? Yes, when you see nice aspects or easy aspects between Venus and Neptune, sure. I want to remind everybody that while this is brewing, okay, we are seeing like a cazimi going on with Mercury. There are planets that are still in opposition to Jupiter. It's making everything bigger. This is a Sun square Saturn day, you know, so I kind of feel like, man, there's something coming up travel-wise, news-wise, or internationally that may steal the thunder of like a Venus, you know, moon Venus sextile Neptune, or a moon Venus, you know, trine Uranus. Like, you're not really reaping some of the benefits because there's other things going on that day. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be a positive transit, but I'm aware that there's other things kind of at play. And then finally, we're going to see right at the tail end of the Venus in Capricorn transit, it will wrap up basically on the 7th. Okay, so it's going to hit that 29 degrees. So it's at a critical degree on the 7th, and then it's going to move into Aquarius, and it looks like that is going to happen like first thing in the morning on December 7th. So when we wake up on the 7th, you know, Venus is in Aquarius, so it's still in a Saturn sign, but it's going to be in an air sign, which is associated with like socializing and friends and freedom and revolution. And this is going to be a conjunction to Pluto, which is now direct, and it's in Aquarius, and it's at 0 degrees. So this is a very, very big turning point, basically, where we're going to start to see glimmers of the future and what the future is going to look like when it comes to women, femininity, socializing, tech, money, you know, all of these things. And I do think it's going to be a quite an important transit. I think that's going to be very telling, watching both of these planets kind of conjunct. Big changes and transformations in love and relationships, but we know that Pluto is also like a bit of a hard ass, right? Like Pluto transits do come with crisis sometimes. They come with breakdown, decay. You know, we sometimes deal with, you know, feeling betrayed, or there being some kind of, yeah, like really heavy duty kind of like life stuff that comes with this transit. In the background, I think about how, you know, Saturn is the dispositor here. I think about how Saturn is now direct. So it's kind of the similar theme of when we were in, you know, Venus in Capricorn. And also Uranus being connected to that, and Uranus is retrograde. Just kind of, you know, thinking about the whole transit in itself, you know, karmic things happening when Venus squares the nodes, and then Venus sextiling Saturn, and we kind of open up to like what we need to kind of create boundaries to protect, or what's time to kind of let go and release. We're open to making changes as Venus trines Uranus. Then it starts sextiling Neptune, and like intuitively we just go like, you know what, it's okay, I can let this go now, or like, you know, I'm just going to kind of move into this with ease. And then boom, Venus goes into Aquarius, which is revolutionary, it's different, it's futuristic, it's forward thinking, and then it conjuncts Pluto. So this will be that freedom. So if we've been seeking, you know, freedom in our careers, if we've been seeking freedom when it comes to our political beliefs, and when it comes to our goals, when it comes to our friendships, the way we socialize, what have you, this is like raw, like rawness when it comes to love and relationships, and also money. So the buildup of kind of leaning into that right before it goes into Aquarius, to me, is like very interesting. Essentially, you know, Venus in Capricorn. So I first of all, I'd love to hear from you guys, because when I do these videos, obviously I always say like, well, check in, you know, like leave me a comment and let me know. But if you have Venus in Capricorn, I'd like to hear from you and hear what you guys think about like my take on it, and also maybe some lessons that you've learned having this placement that you can share with other people as they go through the transit. But like I said, you know, Capricorn, Saturn sign, right? 10th sign of the zodiac, it's the goat. So whenever we think about Capricorn, we think about responsibility and maturity. So that's going to be applied to relationships, right? Through Capricorn. So Venus in Capricorn, it does bring this very serious kind of structured approach to love and relationships or finances. There's definitely a focus on commitment with this placement and long-term planning or stability rather than kind of fleeting relationships and casual connections and things like that. Now, everybody's going to be different. If you have some aspects where obviously it's conjuncting or squaring something or in a certain house, it could be different. But Venus here generally is a little bit more solid, and it is more long-term goal and oriented. And it's kind of like, okay, what are we building together? I think with Venus in Capricorn, there's always this influence where there is a direct connection to career aspirations, right? And I feel like Venus in Capricorn also has like a touch of elegance that it brings to, you know, romantic relationships or business partnerships or anything like that, where it doesn't just treat business as, you know, business as usual, whatever. Like, they're very connected. They're very much intertwined with the people that they work with. Or love can very much be found, you know, through bosses at work, in the workplace, working with partnerships, you know, one-on-one relationships. That can be a theme with Venus in Capricorn as well. They do have a tendency to have pretty decent financial discipline. There's like an inclination generally towards saving, sometimes investments, and also building financial security, right? If we think about Capricorn, it wants to get to the top. So like Venus in Capricorn might mean that they have long-term financial goals or long-term relationship goals, or, you know, their financing strategy might be kind of like long-term oriented, right? The kind of like the end goal of where they want to be when they retire. Now, some of the challenges that I see with this placement is that even though it fosters stability, Venus in Capricorn is a little frosty, right? I have Venus in Capricorn, so I can say that. It can be a little frosty. There can also be a tendency to be a little bit more emotionally restrained because Saturn is involved in this. And so there is some sense of sometimes being cautious about expressing affection. Or they might feel challenged when it comes to relationships. And some relationships can feel like a business arrangement, or that there is this aspect of like, you know, like getting comfortable, you know, with somebody, and then it becomes kind of routine, or it feels like, yeah, like, you know, it's like a job. And so I have heard some Venus and Capricorn people kind of talk about that. And I would say, well, that can be challenging, you know, for most of us who are going through the transit here for just a few short weeks. I feel like it can be really beneficial. This is going to be about practical love. That's really what this is about. And it's going to be about love being shown through actions rather than words. And there's an emphasis on being reliable and having a sense of duty in relationships. That's really what the key is going to be this month. Now, traditional values is another thing with Venus in Capricorn. You know, generally, like, there's a preference for, like I said, traditional relationships. They might be a little bit more conservative when it comes to approaching love or beauty. You know, I have Venus in Capricorn. I love like family heirlooms. That's something that is like my favorite. I have like jewelry and things that, you know, have been given to me from relatives, and like that's something that I love. I also love things that are timeless, right? So I love solid pieces, right? Like a nice black blazer, right? Or a sharp pair of like black shoes or boots, or a nice leather handbag. Things that aren't going to look dated, right? That's just kind of Venus in Capricorn. They also kind of have a little bit more of like a traditional conservative style generally. They can also be interested in things that are older or connected to certain time periods, or things that are going to be like more sought after, things that might be like vintage, right? So Venus in Capricorn does generally kind of like those things. Now, I also feel like this is going to be teaching us a lot about endurance, especially when it comes to relationships, because Venus in Capricorn is in it for the long haul. You know, they tend to be long lasting. And I think that the key here is that realizing that we can make those commitments to relationships, but we need warmth in order to keep that going. Sometimes we need a little bit more spontaneity to keep things exciting, so we're not kind of getting into a groove and just kind of, you know, getting bored. So the best way to work with this transit is have clear goals, especially when it comes to your relationships, your career, and money, right? Those are the things you want to be thinking about, because that's what Venus rules. So use this next couple of weeks as a time to set realistic long-term goals. To see where, look at the house in your chart. You know, that house is going to tell you where you're setting some of those goals and what you're kind of opening up to. Practice patience, because Venus in Capricorn really is about having patience with people that we love. It's also about recognizing that you can't rush love. You can't, you know, make it kind of move along quicker. It's like literally like cement. It is something that takes time to kind of set up over time, but then once it does, it's solid and it's like almost impossible to break. So relationships right now, investments right now, friendships, business alliances, all of these things are supposed to be developing slowly. We're not in a rush to do these things. So take your time, especially because Pluto has been in this area of your chart since 2008. It's been there for years. Now Venus is coming in, and maybe we're going to start to see, you know, some of the sweetness and the reward of the changes that we've made in this area of our chart. I also recommend to invest wisely, okay? Because this is a good transit for financial planning, investing, or starting a business. So, you know, I'm really eyeballing when Venus is coming into like a sextile with Saturn. I think that's going to be a really nice aspect to potentially be considering some of those things. So that's going to be around the 22nd of November. But remember that Mercury is retrograde. So, you know, a lot of us maybe have good ideas or there's something that we want to start up, and you can totally work on that. Maybe just wait until the retrograde is over to get ready to launch some of these things. And then finally, you know, I think that this is also going to be a time where we are learning about really cultivating emotional expression. So, you know, working on expressing affection in tangible ways if verbal expression is not your forte, okay? Because Capricorn is physical, right? It's an earth sign. So, you know, maybe it's going to be important that, you know, we're making more of an effort to, you know, show love in physical, tangible ways that can be helpful. And, you know, if we're not able to do that, then we need to be communicating and letting other people know what we're hoping to achieve and what our goals are in relationships or financial matters. So that way we have something to work towards, because Capricorn wants to work towards things. Now, something that you're going to see that's going to happen this week is Saturn is going to go direct. Okay, so let's go back to today. And Saturn won't go direct still for a couple days. But it's worth mentioning because Saturn is going to be kind of connected to the Venus in Capricorn transit. So Saturn as a dispositor here, I think is really interesting, you know, because I feel like with Venus going through Capricorn, it's a little frosty, you know, it is. But the sextiles and I think Saturn going direct is actually going to strengthen it a little bit. I really feel like this is going to be really helping us when it comes to finding stability in relationships, love, money, work, and career. This is going to be about also recognizing that, you know what, we have duties or commitments that need to be worked on that, you know, we cannot avoid when it comes to the Capricorn area of our chart. We may also be becoming a little bit more clear about our emotional connection to our jobs, our long-term goals, our kind of professional relationships, things like that, because Saturn is in a water sign. And we could also get really serious about our art. So if you're somebody who's a creative, you're, you know, somebody who maybe paints, dances, performs, maybe you're in cinematography, photography, you know, this is really wonderful for aesthetic expressions. And I really feel like this is really helping us build a really strong work ethic for being able to kind of work in those realms. Also, you know, Capricorn is responsibility, leadership, and government. Pisces is private institutions, things that are behind the scenes, those who are in need. We may see much more work hand in hand going on with leadership, talking about how we're going to help people, how we're going to feed people, how we're going to give people, you know, a place to live, how we're going to help them get stabilized and back on their feet. How we're going to help people who also have mental health issues or having drug or alcohol addiction issues. So that can be kind of coming up with Saturn waking up as well, where suddenly there's going to be more support for people who are needing it. But obviously, you know, Saturn and Pisces, just generally, this is about spiritual commitment, right? Saturn is kind of the glue. It's like the rock that grounds us. So being in Pisces, you know, we're pushing for a deeper, much more structured approach, I think, to spirituality and also our dreams. And so there's like a call to bring form and structure into like this more like nebulous kind of intuitive energy of Pisces. Obviously with Saturn and Pisces, you know, we're dealing with boundaries and compassion. Where are we giving too much and where are we not giving enough at all? And setting boundaries in these areas where one typically doesn't, And I think that's going to be an important lesson too, that for some of us this week is going to feel like, hey, Saturn direct, Venus in Capricorn, like tough love. If you love somebody, you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. Or maybe if you love somebody, you're going to show it to them in a way that's going to be a little bit more bold and kind of direct, but you're doing it because you care about them. Yeah, watch for the reality checks in fantasy. We can definitely see that as well, because I feel like Saturn and Pisces in general is about confronting illusions and unrealistic expectations and then grounding it with something that's more tangible. So with Venus being involved in that connection there, it's also saying like, it's more a time where I think out in the world when it comes to leadership or, like politicians or like governments, it's like, no more, just talk. We want to see action. And if something's not working, we're going to kind of cease that. We're going to get rid of that program. We're going to get rid of something that, is wasteful spending, or we don't know where the money is going, or we don't know who it's benefiting. It might be kind of making some difficult decisions, but doing that because, Capricorn says, sometimes being a leader, it's not an easy thing to do, but somebody's got to do it. I do feel like this can be really positive for relationships. So, not just Saturn direct, but, in the sextile to Saturn, it can really help us feel a little bit more duty driven in relationships. And we can incorporate Pisces things like empathy, forgiveness, and understanding. And this can help us actually strengthen some of the bonds with relationships if necessary. For financial, kind of advice, I would just say that some of us might be investing more in spiritual or artistic ventures with a Saturn approach, structured long-term viability in mind. What really gets brought up for me is going to be things revolving around businesses that are associated with Pisces things. Film, photography, health, healing, things that are also kind of connected to prisons, jails, anything also revolving around oceans, water, water treatment, medical or pharmaceutical related things. I think these are going to be some of the topics that might potentially be kind of coming up. And then just in general, for personal growth, I feel like you guys are going to be really feeling compelled to kind of merge Capricorn's ambition, also with Pisces empathy, and doing it in a way that feels good, feels creative, feels like you're opening up. Like for some of you guys, you might be like, it feels good to have more clarity in my relationship and, tell somebody what I want and feel kind of more solid in it. It feels good also to have a clear vision for where I'm going with my career and like finally choose a path of something that really aligns with me. And that really feels like, I'm living and making money in my purpose. So there's going to be a lot of that stuff where it's not just about hard work. It's also about enjoying, who you're with, what you're doing, what you're doing for work professionally as well. So my advice is that, with Saturn going direct and Venus going through the sign, I really feel like this is also learning to be a little bit more fluid, right? Capricorn can be super rigid. And so having Saturn's kind of connection there and the aspects to Saturn is saying like, we can find this balance between, a need for being more kind of fluid and compassionate and also like staying kind of committed to our goals. Like we need to kind of find the middle ground. I love Venus in Capricorn for really having a long-term vision. I think Saturn and Pisces for that as well. But, this is about setting long-term goals that are not just materially successful, but also emotionally and spiritually enriching. Make time for self-reflection, practices like meditation and, kind of being alone in nature or, resting and kind of like taking time to really sit with your emotions, I think is going to be really helpful. And it can really help you come up with a practical plan, right? Because when we have reflection in Pisces, especially with Saturn in Pisces, we're able to feel more productive and more kind of committed and grounded in what we're doing, Venus in Capricorn. And as always, have patience, right? Have patience with people. Patience has been very difficult recently. If you guys notice, the Mars in opposition to Pluto the last week leading up to these transits, there was not a lot of patience. We see more patience with Venus in Capricorn. We're willing to kind of overlook some things because, we are devoted and we are committed. And I feel like we are coming into a period of time where, because communication this week feels a little hairy, if we have a little bit more patience, compassion, and understanding, and we recognize that there are some people out there that just need a little bit more time. They're maybe, not communicating as well. Maybe they're a little stressed. Maybe they're, having a difficult time digesting some of the things that are going on in the world. a little bit of patience and compassion can go a long way, and it can really diffuse a lot of the potential conflict and miscommunications that can happen due to the Mercury squares. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy the Venus in Capricorn transit. As always, let me know. I'd love to hear where you guys have that. I'm a Libra rising. I have Venus in Capricorn, and it's in my 4th house. So it's my chart ruler, and it's a part of like a 4-planet stellium. So I have like Uranus, you know, and then I have Venus, and then I have Saturn, and I have Neptune. So I don't have its traditional Venus in Capricorn, I think, kind of placement, because it's sandwiched between, you know, 3 outer planets, and it opposes Jupiter. But I will say that a lot of the traditional kind of Venus in Capricorn things I really resonate with. And also Venus in Capricorn, great time to get serious about your skin routine. You guys are always asking me about like beauty recommendations, like makeup recommendations. People are always commenting on that stuff, which I think is kind of funny. I appreciate it, but it's kind of funny. And so, yeah, like Venus in Capricorn is a wonderful time to get serious about a skin routine. So if you're wanting to do like anti-aging products, if you are wanting to start working with, you know, I think Saturn and Pisces and that connection to that is like lymphatic drainage. You know, like I always tell everybody, like get a gua sha. They're super cheap. They're very affordable. You can get them on Amazon. You can get one that's a metal one, or you can get one that's jade. I like to put rose oil on my face and then do my lymphatic massage on my face. I do it a couple times a week. And I swear by that. So I'm turning 35 on the 11th. It's my birthday this week. And I've had a lot of people start asking me like, what do you do with your skin? And I'm like, Venus in Capricorn, you know, Saturn, Venus. So yeah, skin routine. If you guys are ever wondering what products I use or what I recommend, you can click the link in the description below. I actually have an Amazon book list, but so many people have asked me questions about like clothes and hair products and makeup and skin routine and like health routine that I put a whole list together for you guys, so you can check that out. All right, so this week we're going to talk about today, Sunday the 10th through the 17th, 2024. Stay tuned to the end. I will talk to you guys about where Venus is moving through the sign of Capricorn for each of the 12 signs. Let you know where Venus is bringing a little bit of her cosmic sweetness for you. All right, with that being said, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. I would imagine a lot of you guys are still in your pajamas with the moon in Pisces. You guys are a little sleepy, maybe just barely getting out of bed this morning. That's okay. With the moon in Pisces, as we're kind of waking up, yeah, we're feeling a little tired. I have noticed time and time again when the moon goes through Pisces, I'm like oversleeping, hitting snooze. It's just, yeah, we're just in like dreamland. So take it easy on yourself today if you're moving a little bit slower. Remember that Pisces is about rest, reflection. It's about our emotions. It's about our intuition. We can be a little bit more sensitive with this transit. And obviously, I'm always looking at either Jupiter or I'm looking at Neptune, okay, if I'm looking at Pisces. So a couple of things to kind of think about. As we get into later today on the 10th on Sunday, plans can go a little astray, okay? There can definitely be some delays, some rescheduling, some setbacks. We can see some issues. So with that being said, get as much stuff done as you can or as you feel emotionally capable of doing with the moon in Pisces before the end of the day, okay? Just trust me on this. Also, P.S., do not schedule travel today, okay? That's not something that I want people doing. When the moon goes through Pisces, positive is we reflect, we're emotional, we're intuitive, we feel more creative, maybe we feel a little bit more tapped in. We're practicing things like meditation and divination and self-reflection, and like we're allowing ourselves to have time to rest. That's really important as the moon goes through Pisces. But the problem that I have is that both of the rulers of this moon are retrograde, okay? So it's also saying turn within. And as the day goes on, we will see the moon square Mercury, which is going to make it difficult to communicate and emotionally relate, especially cultural differences. There can be issues revolving around whether or not we feel emotionally ready to communicate with people. You know, people could be feeling like they want to retreat a little bit with the moon in Pisces. We can also see people who are having some mental health issues, drinking, drugging, self-sabotaging. Unfortunately, those are things that come up with Pisces, so we can see that. And as the moon comes into a square with Mercury and we're kind of feeling like retreating and we don't want to communicate, the moon is also coming into conjunction with Saturn, where there is this emotional hardening or, a difficult emotional situation we're having to process, or we just want to be left alone. So those two things don't really make me feel like people are going to be feeling like talking about their feelings, socializing, getting together. You might see some people being like, I'm really feeling lousy today. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to cancel. I can't do dinner tonight, that kind of stuff. So my advice is get stuff done early. You are going to see this pretty much in the PM hours. So you're going to start feeling, the moon starts coming into a square with Mercury around 2 p.m. I'm central. So it's going to be probably around like noon on the West Coast, going to be sometime around 3 p.m. on the East Coast. But moon square Mercury is like, oh, well, there's some change of circumstances, or my flight's going to be late, or, I'm not ready to sign up for that course yet, or, some cultural debate, something like that kind of going on. And right after that, then the moon is going to be heading towards a conjunction with Saturn. So literally afternoon into the evening, we see some kind of challenges and delays of communication, travel, that kind of stuff. And people are kind of like, I just need to be alone. Especially because that moon is going to hit 12 degrees, okay, which is a very Pisces degree. While the moon's in Pisces, tonight, the 10th, tomorrow, the 11th, pay attention to your emotions, pay attention to your dreams, what's coming up for you kind of emotionally, and what intuition, you're having about stuff. Because we're needing to lean into it. And it's so annoying having both Saturn and Neptune in this sign, because Saturn says we need structure, we need support, we need some kind of foundation, and make it real, make our dreams real. And then we have Neptune that's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't really feel like doing it anymore. I was really kind of feeling it a little while ago, but not anymore. And I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but man, when the moon goes through Pisces, it's like the first day we're all kind of trying to figure it out, kind of having a plan, and then things kind of feel like they go by the wayside by the time the moon hits Neptune. So what this can create with the squares is communication issues, travel issues, weather issues, okay? Remember, Pisces is water, flooding, storms, bridges, things revolving around dams, levees, coastal cities. So there can be news, Mercury, revolving around, now that it's in the shadow, something that is breaking down or changing, and it can be, impacting where we're traveling, where we're going, where we're flying to, that kind of stuff. And also tourism. I think Mercury as a business. So there's going to be some places that are going to be probably hit pretty significantly with some storms, and the impact that that's having on tourism as well. Okay, so that's happening into the PM hours today. So throughout the night, the moon's going to keep going through Pisces. And you'll see on the 11th, so this is now Monday, pretty much all day on the 11th, the moon is going to be between Saturn and Neptune. Okay, so, I consider these planets malefics personally. Saturn is the taskmaster, Neptune can be a little tricky. So having the moon in between these two planets and being kind of besieged means that we kind of feel like we're in our own bubble. We feel like we're like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. And we're kind of okay, we're floating around trying to make sense of what's going on, and be mindful that I think the moon Saturn does create this emotional heaviness. The moon approaching Neptune does make us very sensitive. It can also make us kind of a little avoidant. That there is maybe this sense of feeling, emotionally restricted and kind of isolated in some way. Now, if we find a way to be able to work with that energy, to provide form to that energy, right? Saturn, where we're well, I'm going to meditate through this, or, I'm going to do some hypnosis, or I'm going to, take some time to go and be in nature, or I'm going to go for a swim or a bath. It will help us work with these energies a little bit better. So we're not feeling okay, I'm going to reach for the bottle, or I'm just going to binge and, watch Netflix, or, I'm going to just cry myself to sleep. There is a need to create some sense of stability. And also Saturn in Pisces is very much about sobriety. I have found that it's very much about sobriety and recognizing and realizing where we have a tendency to lean on things because we want to escape, right? Because we just don't want to pay attention. And for some people, it's television. For other people, it's sex. For other people, it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's pot, whatever. Be mindful of some of your habits and what you're leaning on. And there is this sense of recognizing where We need to have better emotional habits. We also need to have, better kind of like lifestyle habits and things where we're not just kind of zoning out. Now on the 11th, you will see that even in spite of this kind of conjunction, the moon is building towards a trine with the sun. So this is the first trine that we've seen since the new moon in Scorpio. Pisces is emotional, sensitive, and receptive. Scorpio is deeply passionate. They're also sensitive, not as receptive, but there's definitely some stuff coming up here where in your feels type of day. So we can be a little bit more sensitive with some of this stuff that's going on with these transits. Now, the moon is now going to be moving away from Saturn. And as it's moving away from Saturn, it's now coming into a square with Jupiter. Okay, so in the morning, we will see that square. So most of like the Saturn moon stuff's happening overnight. But when we get into the early morning, moon is squaring Jupiter. So maybe there is some major emphasis or, kind of like focus on communication, learning, phone calls, meetings, kind of running around. And the moon square Jupiter makes us incredibly sensitive. Like we're much more sensitive than usual with that aspect. Much more sensitive to communications, to changes, especially in our local environment. Maybe we are also a little unsure of how we are responding or reacting to things that people are saying. So that's kind of in the air a little bit on the 11th. And we are also going to see the very same day, this is when Venus is going to move into Capricorn. Okay, so for all of you guys who are Venus ruled, or if you're a Capricorn rising, this is the day that we're going to see that change. Venus has kind of been in a square, by the way. Like it's kind of wrapping up now, but Venus has been in a square with Neptune. So it's interesting that, Venus square Neptune, there's been a lot of, I'm filming this. I'm filming this on the 8th of November. So I'm filming this on Friday. But I have a feeling that either Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday, there is a lot of sadness, right? Venus square Neptune there's some sadness. There is some sense of feeling grief or loss or, some sense of, like remorse even. So that's still hanging around a little bit, right? And then the moon coming in conjunction with Neptune further kind of brings that up. And like moon Neptune could quite literally be like, women who are being emotional, being sensitive, being sad. It can mean that we're just more aware and we're kind of feeling what's kind of going on collectively, revolving around, changing circumstances and situations, revolving Venus things, relationships, money, love, that kind of stuff. So the 11th is a bit of like a mixed bag. I feel like you're either going to fall into the category of getting kind of stuck up in this moon conjunct Saturn Neptune, where we're in like this kind of self-created bubble or goldfish bowl or prison. And it feels very difficult, I think, expressing and kind of getting, the word out. Or you're going to lean into the trine with the sun, which is going to be kind of like, okay, we're embracing change. Change can be good. It can be difficult. It's okay to be emotional. But you know what? Like, what are we learning from the situation? And like pause and reflect. That's where I would encourage you guys to go with that. I feel like that's going to be a better way of kind of working through it. And I don't know, I'll report back to you guys because that moon Saturn Neptune conjunction is, it's in my solar return. It's in my 12th house actually. So I've been, interestingly enough, being like, oh, hypnosis, and like learning about things like that, where it's like altered states and being able to kind of like process things and kind of deal with stuff. So it's interesting to kind of see this manifest, but I will report back. Otherwise, if you're somebody who has a 12th house Pisces moon, you're going through this transit, give me your feedback. I'd love to hear more from you guys about that. All right, so then this is going to, let's look throughout the day on the 11th. So the moon is going to keep moving. It's going to pick up that square to Jupiter early in the morning. Venus goes into Capricorn, and then it looks like in the PM hours, the moon will conjunct Neptune. Big for dreams. And it's going to sextile Pluto. Okay. Compassionate, sensitive. I really feel like the moon Neptune at 27 is like a Gemini degree. So talking about our feelings, expressing how we feel, writing things down, sharing, like, divination. I think Gemini is very much associated with like divination with your hands, tarot cards, pendulums. If you like read shells or crystals or anything like that, it can be a really good day to be reflecting on what information or insight you're getting. Granted, in the background, now Mercury is coming into a square with Saturn. Okay, so maybe you're feeling that all day, and that's like that hardening of the mind, the difficult time, getting the point across or sharing, what you're thinking or what you're kind of like feeling. So many 12s this week, guys, 12s and 24s, which is like, I'm confused. I don't know what I want, or how I feel, or like this thing is kind of breaking down. So there's a lot of needing to really feel into our emotions. That's really going to help us a lot to better express ourselves. All right, so then the moon's going to keep going through Pisces. We're going to wake up on the 12th, which is going to be Tuesday. Completely different energy. Moon's in Aries. Watch out. So with the moon in Aries, first thing in the morning on Tuesday, there is this feeling that's like, oh, the week is finally getting off to a good start. Like, I love like Sunday for, kind of taking it easy. I love Monday for like a mental health day, which is kind of funny. It is Veterans Day, actually. So a lot of you guys may actually have that off. If you have like a regular 9 to 5 or something and you don't have work on Monday, awesome. That's really great. So, I think with the moon conjunct the North Node on Tuesday, it's like, okay, we're kind of getting out there. We're doing stuff. We're getting moving. And we feel more, I think we're feeling more incentivized. There's more energy. We have more pep in our step. The moon is going to come into a trine with Mars, which is the ruler, obviously. So when the moon emotions trines Mars action, we're like, okay, ready to go. Good for physical activity, good for, being independent and kind of initiating something or getting something done. In the background, though, I mean, come on, guys. Moon's ruled by Mars. Sun's ruled by Mars. There's a lot of Martian energy. So I'm not going to candy coat this. You got to have something to do with this energy. If you don't have something to do with this energy, it feels a little rough, right? So be mindful of that. Moon's going to connect in the morning with the North Node, which does to me feel like there is something that is destined to be happening, to be developing. We're touching on not only our goals, but we're applying what's kind of coming up for us emotionally, and we're going after it. The North Node is at a 5, so it's what we love, what's most creative, what feels like the most fun, what feels like the most joyous. Very romantic kind of vibe here as well. So with the moon conjunct the North Node trine Mars, a lot of us are feeling a little bit more willing to go after what we want, and maybe a little bit more self-expressive and even confident, to be honest with you. The only challenge, and it was kind of brewing around the 11th, but it's been happening all morning on the 12th, is that we do have Mercury that is in a square to Saturn. Okay, so Mercury, the mind, communication, travel, business, contracts, negotiations, vehicles, all that fun stuff, squaring Saturn. I want you guys to make a note of what is happening around the 12th, because you're going to have another Mercury square Saturn. So when Mercury retrogrades, it's going to square Saturn again. So this is time to watch, all right? And this is why I said to many of you guys, like the Mercury retrograde, this one, I don't know if you can prepare for it because of the squares that are going to happen between Saturn and Neptune and the oppositions to Jupiter. Let's just see how it goes. Saturn is at a 12, it's retrograde. So, you're going to probably experience a situation where something is being painted or somebody is telling you about something, or, and it may almost feel like it's too good to be true, right? Mercury and Sag. And then the square to Saturn is somebody being like, well, show me the proof. I don't know about this. Like, I don't think this is going to work, or you're being too overly optimistic, or like, and somebody can be like a little bit of like a naysayer about your vision or where you're going, or vice versa. You could be that person. And like, Saturn does kind of keep people in check. Saturn's like, let's be real here. Like, let's get grounded in reality. Let's just not be all talk. And it's really easy for things to be all talk with Jupiter and Gemini and Mercury and Sag. This is a day that I would not schedule travel. That's kind of also happening on Sunday because the moon is there. So traveling on Sunday, traveling on Tuesday, these are days where likely because of the squares involving Saturn and Mercury, things aren't gonna flow very well. Okay, so there can be some delays, there can be setbacks, there can be some challenges. Don't push contracts, don't push meetings, trying to kind of launch websites or things like that involve media and communications. Like something is going to be overlooked or something is going to be missing. And it's possible some of you guys will do it anyway, and then the Mercury retrograde is going back and being like, oh my God, like we forgot to add that page, or, we didn't put that disclaimer, or I didn't read, this piece of the this piece of paper. And Mercury in Sagittarius is literally about legal documents, okay? Legal documents. So if you work in the law field, if you are trying to sign legal documents, if you're thinking about launching a lawsuit, if you are going back and forth with the courts, this could be a little bit more tricky, all right? But this to me feels like the issues in communication are going to be because of the things that we don't say, because of the things we don't read, because of the things we didn't know, all right? So that's going to be happening on the 12th. We will see the moon continue to move. And what's interesting is this is more in the morning. So later in the day, when the moon is moving into a trine with Mercury in the evening, and Mercury's out of the square with Saturn, the later in the day you're trying to communicate, you're trying to sign things, you're trying to agree to things, the better, because Mercury and Saturn aren't landlocked with each other, and the moon is now flowing into a trine with Mercury where it's like, okay, now we can take action. Or, oh, you're not able to make our meeting? No problem. Let's move it to this evening, or let's do it tomorrow, like whatever. But something like that can kind of come up. Okay, so this is now going to take us to the 13th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Aries. Nothing's really changed. But the moon will conjunct Chiron. So be mindful that, on Wednesday, the themes of emotions, right, and actions, Aries, and also Chiron, healing, are all in the mix. Aries is your face, it's your head, okay? So I see more people have like seasonal allergies, concussions, bumping their head, bruises, migraines, headaches, issues with inflammation, cuts, burns, bruises, and abrasions, just literally with this conjunction. Mars is the ruler. Mars isn't really doing anything. Mars is very slow right now, and it is slowly coming into a trine with the North Node over the next month. It's within a couple degrees, so maybe you may feel like the action you're taking in Leo is kind of in alignment, and it's like being supported with, the North Node in Aries, the moon in Aries. But I really feel like this could be bringing up some like emotional wounding or the need to kind of heal something. Okay, so that's kind of in the air on the 13th. While the moon's going through Aries, it is also in conjunct or in conjunct the sun. So there is something disjointed, and like the moon in Aries is very much a self-starter, but the conjunction to Chiron is like, I want to do it myself, but it's difficult and I don't know how to do it, and I'm having issues doing things on my own. And then the sun in Scorpio is like where there needs to be a change, right? There needs to be some kind of shift. So things do feel like a little disjointed there to me. All right. Then as we go throughout the day, we will see overnight, the moon will square Pluto. Oh, it's also sextiling Jupiter, by the way. So this is positive for opening up in terms of communication and, sharing with other people and reading, writing, learning, connecting, that kind of stuff. But over the PM hours, the moon will come into a square with Pluto. And so for most of us, depending on where you are in the world, we're sleeping, at least here, in the northern hemisphere. But when the moon comes into a square with Pluto, there is definitely like some conflict, and there's like a power struggle of sorts. So if you're up around the late hours, going into the early hours, just know that that's in the sky. And when we have 29 degrees, there's always critical things that happen here. Aries is the self, Capricorn is more our responsibility, our work. So there can be some kind of conflict revolving around individuals who are feeling challenged by changing power structures, changing issues with bosses, government, officials, leaderships, and how that's impacting individuals. All right, so then this is going to take us to the 14th. Okay, so this is now Thursday. And when we wake up, the moon's in Taurus. Okay, so now we're building into the full moon. We will have a full moon in this sign. And when the moon is in Taurus, we're always looking at Venus. All right, so what's really nice is that first thing in the morning on the 14th, we're going to see an exalted moon in Taurus where our focus on beauty, pleasure, resources, stability, security, self-esteem is trining Venus. So this is really good for money stuff. And this is also really good for recognition, success in professional life, relationships with people out in the world. I really like the 14th. Yes, we are going to see some other stuff that's going to happen, but I really want to focus on the positive aspect that Venus is having with the moon. In the back of my mind, though, I know that the moon is still coming out of a square with Pluto. Okay, so there still is this sense of how we are emotionally reacting to changes going on with power and structure out in the world, and how this could be creating some change situations financially. The moon is also in a square to Mars. Okay, so this is kind of like, you can't quite see it because the Pluto's not in Aquarius yet, but this is making the moon a focal point. Here we go. Sorry. This is making the moon a focal point of a T-square between Mars, which is saying like, let's take chances, let's take risks, you know, let's grow, let's increase, let's keep going. And Pluto, which is changing transformative situations because it's getting ready to go into Aquarius. In my mind, the 14th is going to be an interesting day to watch the stock market, because this can be indicating there is some growing situation that's coming involving banking, money, resources, finances, right? Taurus things. So what's positive is the moon trine Venus is saying like, look, you know, it's solid. We can make some stuff happen. We can make some moves, but you guys might notice there is some increased pressure to make financial changes, job changes, relationship changes, what have you, that's coming up in around the 14th. Now the moon's also going to keep going through Taurus, and one other aspect it's going to start making later in the day is it's going to start sextiling Saturn, which is supporting. It's at the end of the day, but still it's sextiling Saturn. So Saturn in Pisces, you know, it is getting ready to go direct. So it's kind of like stationing now. Basically, this is like, if you dream it, you know, you can build it, or there is some sense of our, you know, dream situation, or our, you know, what we've been praying for, what we've been asking for, some kind of support in some area or aspect of our life that is, you know, potentially bringing us some change in fortune or change with our finances. And then this is going to lead us now into the 15th. And moon sextile Saturn is good for emotional connection and stability as well. But then we're going to go into the 15th. And so this is the day that we will have the full moon. Okay. And the full moon is going to come in at 24 degrees. That's what it's going to be at. Let's see. There we go. A lot of 12s and a lot of 24s. Are you guys noticing this? It's like there are some real mystical, magical things at play. There's going to be some stuff that magically appears and just happens to kind of come through right when we need it. That, you know, can be the right relationship, the right job, the financial support, you know, the clarity. But it can also be circumstances where it's like, that was there and now it's gone, and we've been doing this and now that's out the door, and you know, you thought this was stable and now it's dissolved. Like, there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen that people are not going to see coming. So on the 15th, on Friday, we've got a full moon in Taurus, which means the moon is in Taurus. Emotionally, we are experiencing some kind of like climactic event. There is some major completion revolving around the Taurus area of our chart. Taurus, money, beauty, resources, you know, abundance, groundedness. It can be about food. It's about the earth. It's about fertility. It's about nourishment. And obviously this is very close to Uranus, and I have experienced a lot of Uranus transits over the last years. And I can tell you that it's been my experience that not only when we have a Uranus transit, but when it's baked into like a lunation, generally something happens like that day. It's not like you wait a couple days for something to happen. Something will happen that day. Uranus, what is shocking, surprising, comes out of left field, complete curveball. You don't see it coming. It's electrifying. It is about freedom. It's about innovation. It's about the future technology of what? Taurus things, food, money, the banking system, you know. Would not surprise me if we get some insight revolving around a potential banking collapse that's brewing. Would not surprise me that there is going to be a lot of public reaction and response, right? The moon, to Venus-related things. Well, where's Venus? In Capricorn. You guys have been hearing about how there's been a lot of talk about people being like, well, what is going to happen, you know, with government spending? And like, what is going to happen with taxes? And like, are we going to see, you know, some of these things happen where we're not going to be taxed on tips? You know, are we going to see a move away from the Federal Reserve? I mean, like, Powell's getting grilled by reporters this week being like, you know, if Trump asks you to step down, are you going to step down? And so money is Venus. Capricorn are officials, right? So I'm like, oh, is Janet Yellen going to come out and say something? You know, Venus in Capricorn, an older woman who's a government official who has some kind of connection with banking and, you know, interest rates, reserves, all of these things. I'm just kind of spitballing, but I'm like, there's going to be something that's going to probably happen that's going to be giving us some shocking insight revolving around the future of what's going to be going on with government or, you know, public insight about our economic kind of situation or government spending. And it can mean these are the cuts that we're making. These are the job cuts we are making. It can also mean, hey, this is where we're actually going to be providing some support, right? Taurus is about support. And Venus is at a 4. So it's going to be in regards to homes and families. It's going to be in regards to mortgages, property. It could be connected to property taxes. It could be connected also to just the sweeping changes that are going to be happening. You know, I'm an American, so I'm thinking about it from this perspective. I know we're global, but the sweeping changes that are going to be happening in the banking sector, right? Full moon in Taurus conjunct Uranus. And the impact that that is going to be having on all of us at home, wherever we live. This could also be energy. Uranus is energy, technology, the internet. And you know how that is going to be greatly influenced by some of this Venus in kind of Capricorn flavor. Could be really good news for businesses that are involved in tech, businesses also that may thrive in this incoming administration, that are potentially going to have good relationships, Venus in Capricorn, with the incoming administration. And that there, you know, we might see some stocks just go completely berserk and like surge. Yes, this is a full moon that's conjunct Algol. I've talked about the emotional and psychological effects of that it can be pretty gnarly, and you guys want to be really, really careful with anything revolving around substances, drinking, you know, medications. This is where we feel like we're just like losing our head, you know. Just this literally reminds me of like The Exorcist. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. I saw that movie when I was like 6 or 7 years old. My parents showed it to me. It scared the crap out of me. So it's like that's the one movie that even as an adult I cannot watch that movie. But just the idea of like her head spinning around, like that's very Algol, right? Like Medusa, that kind of stuff. So there can be stuff that can come up that just makes people go, what? You know, and they just lose it. And I also attribute a lot of what's been going on, you know, with Uranus retrograde conjunct Algol as to why we're just seeing some people who are like literally having complete just like breakdowns, you know, in all regard. Scary stuff for some people, I understand, but the retrograde is really saying like we need to get a hold on this. You know, if we completely lose it, especially with the trines to Pluto over what changes and transformations are going on out in the world with power structures, the impact that that has on our physical body, the impact that that has on our resources, the impact that that has also on, you know, our sense of stability. So this is a full moon where emotions are high, Uranus is involved, we can feel very destabilized. And the positive is that, you know, the ruler is in a very grounded sign. However, she's also squaring the north and the south node. She's coming into that square, which is saying like, you know, there's about to be some big changes going on with, you know, relationships revolving around politicians and government, Capricorn, revolving around relationships with people at work, revolving around what's going on in our professional lives and the companies we work for, the business that we're doing or what have you. And so there can be some big shocks and surprises coming from this. The transit that we saw back in July when Mars was in conjunction to Uranus, okay, that was the day that we saw the assassination attempt, the first one against President Trump. Oh, President Trump, I can say that now, crazy. Against President Trump, weird. So I'm putting this out there now because unfortunately with a lot of the other predictions that I've made, I've been scarily accurate. For those of you guys who haven't seen my election video, I put that out months ago, got a lot of slack from people from the stuff that I said. But it all pretty much came true. The only thing that I did say is, you know, I said if Trump was alive, he would become president. And I'm thinking about making a part 2, talking to you guys about what may come next, because there's still a long time to Inauguration Day. There's still a lot of things that can happen. I have a lot of thoughts now that we know all the players involved, because when I did that video, you know, Biden was still running for president. And I was like, he's going to step down and it's going to be a woman. And pretty much everything I said happened.
And part of me is still curious, and my astrologer mind is going, but will he be the one who is sworn in on the day of inauguration? And I'm not saying this to incite anything. My politics aside, it has nothing to do with that. I purely approach this from a astrological kind of viewpoint. So I'm going to put this out there now. The Moon-Uranus conjunction that we're seeing is the same conjunction. It's not Mars-Uranus, but it's the same trigger point of Algol where we saw the assassination attempt. Okay, so here's the trigger warning for those of you guys who asked for it last time. There's a lot of triggers associated with Algol. We see beheadings, we see suicide, we see assassination attempts, we see hanging. Unfortunately, these are things that are connected with the sign, right? It's the head, off with their head. So somebody's gonna lose their shit, basically. I think a lot of people are gonna lose their shit with a full moon conjunct this degree. And it's going to be over the future direction of relationships that we are starting to see being built, okay? As you guys know, as we are going into what's going to be, 2025, we're gonna have a new administration. So there is like a transition period that's going on right now. So we're seeing that preparation where, Trump is gonna be creating his cabinet, putting stuff together and, establishing relationships with people and picking people. And with Venus square the North and the South Node, the people that are being chosen, right, are very prominent. And we might see a very prominent woman come into light, okay? So I think of, could it be Janet Yellen, talking about what's going on with the future of the finances, or maybe, talking about rates and things like that, maybe. Could it be Tulsi Gabbard, because it's going to be at a 5? Could it be a woman, Venus, who served in office and also was like involved in military, right? Kind of 5 Capricorn. So I'm watching for this. Watch big, love money, stuff that can come up. I'm keeping an eye on Trump. This full moon is going to be exactly on his midheaven. So we know how that played out last time. We saw a Mars aspect. This time he's got a Venus aspect. So as a Leo rising chart, this is going to be going through, obviously, his 6th house, right? Whole sign. It's going to be going through his 6th house whole sign. I think it'll actually be somewhere closer to like his 4th or his 5th house in Placidus. But anyway, could that mean that there is some, prominent announcement that's being made about somebody who he's bringing on or who he's hiring or who he's working with? I've just recently been hearing a lot of people who have been kind of sounding the alarm about his selected chief of staff, who's actually, I can't remember her name, but the woman who has been his campaign manager, right? Who's kind of been with him throughout this whole process. Come to find out, she was very much involved in the pharmaceutical world. And some people are kind of sounding the alarm about that. People are sounding the alarm about a lot of people. You're hearing a lot of people who are kind of weighing in and giving their 2 cents to Trump about who should and should not be in certain positions. So I think that we're going to hear a lot more about that with that particular aspect. Obviously, we don't want to see any violence. We don't want to see anybody being attacked. We don't want to see any shootings. We don't want, against anyone. Recently just kind of being on social media and just seeing like so many videos of people who are so angry and they're saying despicable things and things that make them look very mentally unwell, and things that should not be wished upon anybody. Unfortunately, there's like a whole string of people who seem to think it's okay to go on social media and be basically instigating and calling for violence against a, person who is going to potentially be running the country. It doesn't really matter who it is. That's not okay. And so I feel like there's going to be more talk revolving that and about some of these issues. And obviously, I hope and pray that everything is just, it's safe and that he is okay. Because we as a nation do not want to perpetuate this violence against anyone. We don't. Now, Venus is a woman, right? So I think about this full moon that's going to be in opposition to Biden's sun. So I'm looking at Biden's chart, like there could be some major health issue or some major scandal, or somebody is kind of, not doing Biden any favors. The 6th house is health. It's about his routine. It's his staff. It's his schedule. Do we hear that there is some major crisis involving Biden's health? Obviously, I hope not. But, part of me is like with that conjunction to Uranus, it's possible. There could be some news getting out that there's something going on there. Does that perpetuate the square to Venus that potentially pushes up a woman and puts her into visibility or into office? I'm not convinced. I mean, there were a lot of astrologers that were pretty confident that, Kamala was going to win. For me personally, not politicking. It was very obvious to me that she would not win, okay? For a number of reasons. Looking at the progressions, looking at the returns, looking at a lot of things for a lot of, potential people it could have been. I did not even consider her before Biden stepped down, because I just didn't see it with the Jupiter-Saturn square and some other stuff. But a lot of people were very adamant saying, well, we see her rising to some prominent position, right? We see that happening. I cannot rule out the potential that they may not still try to make her president before the inauguration. That is possible. It could happen. But I don't know. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. I've certainly been very vocal about this on Twitter, and gotten a lot of hate for it. But it's really interesting that you can make a comment or a statement about something and pretty much show people, this is how I came to the conclusion that I came to. This is what I think. And then people will trash you when they're asking you for your opinion. And then it kind of goes silent for a little bit. And then you end up, several months later seeing that the predictions literally all unfolded. And then people will just come out for you on the internet. To me, I just can't understand it. I'm trying to let it go. But it's really, really telling that you've got a lot of people who are clearly very unhappy and they have a lot of free time on their hands. And it's really sad. I'm hoping that this just ends, because we've had so much division over the last couple of years that what we really need is unification. Especially in the spiritual world, astrology world. We're all supposed to be seeing people's perspectives from a very abstract, different way, and being able to kind of see from their perspective and integrating other people's thoughts and keeping an open mind. So I hope we can continue to do that and put the politics aside. I'm really, really hoping that that's going to happen. So we'll see. Watch for Trump, see what happens. Watch for those sudden, unexpected kind of curveballs that can definitely kind of come through on the 15th with that full moon. Check out the video if you guys want to see that, because I talk about that quite a bit. Saturn also goes direct. Okay, so Saturn's now direct in Pisces. So P.S. Capricorn risings, Aquarius risings, Saturn's waking up, so your chart ruler is now open for business. It'll take a little bit of time. Obviously, it'll sit at 12 degrees for a little bit before it gets moving. Same for Pisces risings as well. But when planets station, we see the themes of that planet come online. Okay, so Saturn in Pisces is creating stability in what may feel like choppy waters. I think of Saturn in Pisces is when you're at the beach and you kind of scoop your hand up and you pick up sand, and water, and everything just kind of slides right through your fingers, and you're like, oh, I had a handful of something and now it's gone. Very Saturn in Pisces. It can be kind of slippery. Anyway, so Saturn going direct means that in the area of your chart, now we're going to see some stability, some structure. We're going to see something potentially be a little bit more solid, more reliable. It's good news for people taking responsibility. It's good news for leadership. It's good news also for long-term goals and planning. Now we read the 13 degrees because this is 12 degrees and change. So the Sabian symbol for the 13th degree is a sword in a museum, and the keyword is example. The theme is the power of precedent. The symbol speaks to the far-reaching effect of the lives and the deeds and historic figures of the past. The image of the sword in a museum emphasizes courage, honor, and willpower. But the sword here is also a weapon laid to rest, and as such, it can symbolize prior hostilities, bitterness, and conflict. At every critical turn of events in recorded history, someone or more individuals rise to glory and shape the destiny of the race, and down throughout the years, their courage and achievements continue to influence the thinking and decisions of new leaders in similar situations. At its highest, this symbol represents personal power, decisiveness, and the ability to inspire others by living collective ideals in practical, everyday ways. Watch for gross exaggeration of the difficulty and a magnitude of achievements. The accent is on influence from the past. You may find yourself trying to discover how immediate predicaments were successfully resolved in similar situations. Your greatest advantage lies in following procedures or tradition. Do your research, look at the background of history of the immediate situation. Guard against making mountains out of molehills. Don't blow things out of proportion or exaggerate or the magnitude of the problem that can be solved. Stepping stones are prior achievement, battles, won, archetype, paradigm, paragon, representation, exemplar, ideal hero, Palladian, peace, courage, honor, valor, bravery, power, decisiveness, and inspiration. The sword. It's a cool Sabian symbol. I think about, obviously history is very Saturn, looking back in history and what's happened historically. The fact that the ruler or the dispositor of Saturn is, coming back into a square, with Saturn, and Jupiter in Gemini is knowledge, information, access to knowledge, data, books, magazines. I think it's going to be touching on like where there is going to be a need to get really aware and involved with the fact that there has been an intentional manipulation of history, how history has been told to us, what we know, what we have always believed in, where it might actually be very different, and whether that's we're talking older historical events or things that are more so new. Not blowing things out of proportion. Hello, Mercury's in opposition to Jupiter at the time, so there is going to be some stuff blown out of proportion. And I think for a lot of people, there's going to be some shocks and surprises revolving around, what's kind of becoming known, or what we're realizing, or what's being uncovered, about the past. And that can be about historical figures. I think you're going to hear a lot about historical figures with not just that Sabian symbol, but with Saturn sitting at that degree for so long. And there is like this feeling of like looking back at like previous times or leaders or empires and like how they navigated like change. It's so interesting now being on the other side of the Pluto and Capricorn transit, now that it's almost finished. And I think about like how so many astrologers will tie that transit to the United States Revolution, where we saw, basically the United States became independent, in the midst of Pluto in the late degrees of Capricorn, because it came down to, people getting so angry and so pissed off of, Britain having control over the colonies and control over the resources, and ultimately taxation without representation. And like it got to a point where people became so angry and also so sick of, being essentially treated as, slaves that were sent to this country that were just going to be creating, materials and whatever to be sent back to the UK, that they decided to rebel, right? Slavery is directly connected to Capricorn, by the way. It's well known. So Pluto and Capricorn, going through there, making people realize that they were basically a slave to a system. And also we saw slavery being a big theme revolving around that time as well. And finally, people started kind of breaking out of that and realizing they couldn't stay there. Then we see now, in the 2000s, that the Pluto and Capricorn transit, I think for a lot of people, is recognizing that they've become a slave to the system again. And that there's too much control, and there's too many arms that are kind of reaching out from government that are having control and say over things. So it's interesting to see this last moment and a full moon that is going to be trining that, which could be like literally saying, okay, now here comes the big change, the big cuts. And I think we're going to see a lot of federal job cuts. And I think that people are going to start becoming aware of that, probably as a result of some of these transits. But reflecting on the past, right? The sword, reflecting on the past, what has happened in the past? What did our ancestors do? Or what did our forefathers do? Or what did our, old leaders do? And how did we get here? And how can we be feeling inspired by people who have kind of paved the way and been revolutionaries in the past? And I think there's going to be a lot of that's going to be coming up as Saturn is sitting at that degree. What from the past do we want to recognize? Do we want to remember? Do we want to preserve? And there's definitely going to be lots of discussions about involvement with Saturn going direct, squaring Jupiter, and also Mercury, about new rules, limitations, regulations revolving around media, revolving also around education, what you can and cannot have access to, what you can and cannot say, what you can and cannot learn about, new regulations and restrictions for colleges, institutions, and schools as well. And it's going to be interesting to see which way this falls, to be honest with you, because the retrograde and some of the shadow stuff is a little It's a little confusing. So we'll know more about where all that stuff is going to kind of land as we're getting into like December and January. All right, so that's Friday. Lots of stuff going on, obviously. The moon's going to keep moving. It's going to move out of the conjunction with Uranus. Late at night, it's going to trine Pluto, so it's a pretty transformative moon. And then it's going to move into Gemini. Okay, so we wake up then on Saturday the 16th. And with the moon in Gemini, we're looking at Mercury. Mercury is going through Sag. It's in its fall. It is coming into an opposition with Jupiter. So this is where the tall tales come in. This is where the big concepts, the big ideas. Yes, there's mutual reception between the two. But by about 5 degrees, 6 degrees, they're both squaring Saturn. So interesting that now Saturn's awake and Saturn's like checking, Mercury and Sag. It's like, actually, I have something to say about, where you're traveling, what you're learning, what you believe in, or I have something to say about, education or philosophy, and also having something to say about communication and social media, things revolving around documents, paperwork, and travel. So Saturn is very much a focal point right now. Okay, so the Saturn direct is a very big deal. With Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, just that aside, big news, big information, things being inflated, unexpected stuff kind of coming up out of the blue that is involving, Jupiter is laws, okay? It's legislation. Mercury is documents. I think that mid-November into December is going to be a time where we're going to start hearing about the executive orders that are going to be coming through when we get into January. And I think some of the stuff that people are going to be hearing is going to be like shocking. Like it's going to like break the internet. People are going to be like, wait, this is really happening. And we're going to start to kind of see where there's been some promises and whether or not those promises are going to be fulfilled, or if it's all talk and if some things sound too good to be true. So it's too soon to know, to be honest with you. I personally, from an astrological perspective, I look at this and I go, the squares to Saturn is going to be, are they actually going to make the changes that they say they're going to make? Are we actually going to see some type of leadership? Are we actually going to see some type of accountability? And I really feel like, obviously Gemini is a very mental sign. It's about our mental faculties, communication and processing. Sagittarius is about what we believe in. It's not necessarily fact, but it's beliefs. And then Pisces is how that impacts us emotionally and like what's going on with us psychologically. So when you start to see the news breaking that's very big about the future of what's going on with some of these topics and the fact that, we're hearing that it's going to be kind of coming as a result of changes with leadership, some people are going to be over the moon excited with Mercury in opposition to Jupiter. They can't wait to tell everybody. And then other people are going to be like, oh my God, this is stressing me out. This is the worst thing ever. Oh my God, and like that's why we're seeing some people that like literally cannot handle what's going on right now. That's why we're seeing some people who are like, I am selling my house, processing documents, and I'm moving to another country. This is very Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, square Saturn, and changes that feel heavy. And when I take a step back and I look at it, it's like, okay, change is inevitable. We're going to have change throughout this Mercury retrograde. That's a given. How do we look at change? Right? Are we looking at it from the perspective of Mercury square Saturn? I can't do it. This is going to be too difficult. It's not possible. Why do we even waste our time? We shut it down before we even give it a chance. Or are we looking at it from the perspective of, Jupiter square Saturn? It's going to require patience and persistence, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to keep an open mind and I'm willing to also have open dialogue, Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, to try to better understand people rather than shutting down. I saw a wonderful video on X today, and I watched it first thing in the morning, and I just like had this shit-eating grin from ear to ear, and it was this very progressive woman that was sitting in her car, and she was recording a video, and she said, point blank, like this is literally word for word. She said, I'm trying to understand. I'm creating this video because I want to create an open dialogue. For the last several months, I have been very much riding the blue wave. I believed Kamala was going to win. I really felt like that's where the nation was going, that this was this kind of move that we're making with women and for women's rights. And I really genuinely believed, because of what I saw on my media, what I saw on the news, what I heard from my friends, like everybody was convinced she was going to win. And I was shocked to find out that she did not win, that it was actually Donald Trump. Okay. And she goes, and so I'm trying to understand. She's like, I'm trying to keep an open mind. She's like, because I'm coming to this realization that my reality may not actually be the reality of what's going on in the world. And she's like, I'm starting to think that I'm in an echo chamber, and what I'm seeing and what I'm, seeing on my social media and also on TV and like what I'm consuming is a very different perspective than what's going on. And she said, so can you guys please enlighten me? Can you tell me, what is it that drew you to this particular candidate? What is it about his campaign? What is it about his practices? Like, why? Because I genuinely want to know, because clearly I'm not getting the information that I need. And I just had this huge grin on my face. And it has nothing to do with politics. It's not about Trump. It's not about Kamala. It's about somebody saying, hey, Mercury shadow, I'm willing to rethink how I communicate and how I think and how I learn, what I believe in. And I recognize that there is clearly a blind spot, square Saturn. And that blind spot is actually disconnecting me from reality, Saturn and Pisces. And I want to learn, Mercury in opposition to Jupiter and Gemini. So I'm taking to my social media and I'm telling people, hey, I'm not seeing things. Can you enlighten me? I want to hear your perspective because I'm lost. Things like that give me faith and like hope for humanity. To have people that are like, maybe I was wrong or maybe I was misinformed. Like, it makes me realize that there are smart people out there. There's just people who are now starting to kind of realize that a lot of the division that we're seeing is because of what we're being fed, right? Because of where we're getting our information, because we get too fixated and maybe even we're having like this identity situation where we only identify with certain groups, certain ethnic groups, certain religious groups, certain political groups, certain just people in general. And that really isolates us. It keeps us out of being able to have conversations with people that are different than us, that live differently, have different perspectives, have different educations, come from different backgrounds, things that really are going to help us be better rounded individuals. And so much about this opposition that you guys are going to see is being like, wow, maybe what we've been hearing isn't really what it was. And it doesn't have to pertain to what I'm talking about. It could be anything. Okay. The area of your chart that's getting reworked is, going to be Sagittarius, but there's going to be some insight. There's going to be some information outside of that in Gemini that's going to start to show you the blockage. And so I'm hoping that we see more of this in general. People who don't understand other people's cultures, their religions, people who make assumptions because of where, people live or what they practice or, where they went to school, like whatever, like we're going to start to break that stuff down. I'm hoping. That is the process that's starting. So watch for the big information, the big news, like the changes that are kind of happening, revolving around that. Obviously with the moon and Jupiter going through that conjunction together in Gemini, right? All right, so what else are we going to be having happen here? So Venus has come out of the square at the node. So 15th, 16th, those kind of fateful events in relationships and money is kind of brewing. This is the day that we see the sun in opposition to Uranus, okay? So the anything goes, something unexpected outside of ourselves. Uranus, sudden, shocking, surprising, electric, futuristic. And then the sun, obviously it can be talking about male figures, leaders. This is why I was like, Biden. I wonder if something's going to go on Biden around this time. The sun is also the dispositor of Mars, okay? So Mars is kind of creeping into a trine with the North Node. It's still in an opposition to Pluto. So we are going to see change in direction with leadership. That is going to be something that will be happening throughout the Mars retrograde, even the shadow leading up to that in December. But this is at an Aries degree. So there's going to be somebody taking some kind of sudden unexpected action. We might be seeing people acting out, being kind of violent. We can see people who are being really selfish. Obviously, the axis of Taurus and Scorpio is what's mine versus what's ours. It's what's money in the bank, what I possess, what I own, versus taxes and things revolving around banking and, things revolving around joint resources and loans and debt. So we may be hearing stuff revolving around those things that are kind of coming out at that time. Outside of that, that's pretty much the only other thing that's happening. So you'll see a curveball from that, which is still building off of the full moon. You will also see these fateful love and money related things happening all day because Venus is squaring the nodes. And, we need a little bit more love, commitment, dedication, willingness to put in the work, right? Venus in Capricorn says like good things come with time. Relationships mature with time, right? Relationships get better with age. Money can get better with age. There can be some long-term kind of incentives that are coming up with these things. Venus in Capricorn is like wine, wine generally, good wine gets better with age. So some people may see what's worth making an investment in for the long term and like where it may actually kind of pay off in a positive way. All right, so this is then going to take us to the 17th, which is Sunday. And what we are going to see is throughout the evening, okay, so this is like now the middle of the night coming into Sunday morning, the moon will square Saturn, so there can be some kind of like world events and stuff kind of going on. And then we wake up in the morning and the moon's conjunct Jupiter, okay, in opposition to Mercury. Wow. 18 degrees. 18 degrees. 18 degrees are not good degrees. 18 degrees deal with health issues, issues revolving around accidents, issues revolving around workers, workmen, things like that, job-related issues. And Jupiter rules Mercury, Mercury rules Jupiter, there's a mutual reception. Both are still slightly squaring Saturn. What is 19 degrees of Gemini? A large archaic volume. The theme is history lessons. The symbol speaks to learning and knowledge gained through repetition and experience. The image of a large archaic volume emphasizes the principle that can experience that can't be destroyed, and each time the experience is repeated, it gets easier. It also alludes to ancient wisdom in the Akashic records through inner thought that can be obtained from examining history in the background situation. In the 1953 commentary of this image, man achieves best as he cultures a real sense of obligation to his own roots. It suggests that an individual should be guided by what he learns from his own experiences before he relies on the advice of others. At its highest, it represents special talent for reestablishing self in any situation, prior advantage with a minimum effort, an exceptional skill for solving problems. Watch for crystallization or running all opportunities for growth by living in the past and trying to preserve the status quo. The accent is on learning from experiences and looking from things from a historical perspective. Your greatest advantage lies in paying attention to the background of a situation. An answer that you're looking for may be found in a book or a library. Guard against ruining all chances for growth or progress by insisting that things stay the way that they are, the way that they always have been. Older isn't necessarily better. Knowledge, education, history, background, frame of reference, experience. Interesting that that's coming up again. History, history, history. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about that this is just such a significant point in history, right? The astrology aside, what's going on with the U.S. election that is now over is historical. And I think you're going to hear a lot of people talking about that. They're going to be making connections to what's happened with previous presidential elections that may have been sweeps and what happened after that. You're going to be hearing about a lot of like law professors and history professors talking about it. People are going to possibly be, comparing it to other times in history. Moon conjunct Jupiter in general, we're happy, right? It's like we're happy, we're chatty, we're excited, we're, running around, we're traveling, we're doing stuff, we're busy, so it definitely has like this feeling of, going and getting stuff done. But keep in mind that the opposition to Mercury means that there's something else that's kind of going on between us, and there's a back and forth. This is where we can see some issues revolving around translation, teaching, relating things to people, things that people can't comprehend. Issues also with translation, literal translation can happen here. I anticipate at some point through the Mercury shadow into December, there's going to be some kind of video that's going to come out that is going to be in a foreign language, or it's going to be from a foreign leader or some foreign news station saying something, and then it's going to, you know, hit US, you know, or the Western world, and people are going to go, why didn't we hear this? Why didn't we know this? Nobody told us, right? Nobody told you, because, you know, there has been a lot of stuff put in order to limit what you can see and what you can hear and what you can read. And so we might be hearing about the fact that there is going to be some legal processes changing, revolving around that over the next couple of months. There, in turn, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be flooding that people are suddenly going to be able to hear, find out, see, and learn about. And it may be coming from other countries. It might be other countries responding to the fact that, holy cow, you know, the United States just kind of definitely flipped the script when it comes to, you know, where things are going. I heard a woman on X today, and she created a video. She was very upset. She's like, you know, I'm from the Middle East. She's like, I'm from an Arab country. She's like, I see all these videos of American women right now on Instagram or on TikTok or, you know, on social media, yelling and screaming and melting down, saying, they're taking away our rights. They're taking away our rights. You know, we have no rights. We have nothing. And all of this stuff. And she's just like, I come from a country where women can't vote. They're not allowed to, where they're not allowed to leave their house. They have to cover their entire body. They face, you know, a multitude of abuses from family and also partners. They're essentially treated like lower class citizens. And they really genuinely don't have freedom. They don't have rights. And how insulted she was to see all of this blow up going on in the media, and how it was like being perpetuated basically on social media, when she's like, we've been dealing with this forever and nobody makes a fuss about it and we're silently suffering. Reminded me of this, the cultural differences in what we say and what we think and what we do compared to what's actually happening in other parts of the world, and our lack of ability to see clearly, make a connection, you know, the squares to Saturn. But also the silver lining with this is that there can also be some positive things, where this can also be throughout the retrograde inspiring some people who are seeing what's going on in the United States, and they're like, wow, there may still be hope for our country. You know, we're possibly going to see, I already saw, I think they're having it in Germany. There's talk about like snap elections and stuff going on. So I'm like, going to be interesting to see what happens with some of these like European countries, you know, like what manifests and what will happen also to places like Canada or Australia or what have you, now that the tide is kind of turning a little bit here in the United States. Anyway, so with that being said, let me see if there's anything else that I've got going on this day. So we have got the opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. The moon will also be in a square to Saturn, so it does make us kind of like really chatty, but we're like, ooh, do we want to say that? Do we want to touch that topic? So I don't know. And there are still these holy cow things happening post full moon in Taurus, you know, and the sun in opposition to Uranus. The media is going to be big. We can see some very significant weather events. Okay. Moon, Jupiter, can be things revolving around impacting travel. It can also be things connecting to wind. It can also be stuff connecting to storms, the media, the courts. Okay. And then at the end of the day, then we're going to see the moon that's going to cross Jupiter, and it's going to come into a square with Neptune. So that's kind of like, how are we feeling? You know, what do we think happened? Like, and a lot of people are going to have possibly like a hard time comprehending or understanding some of the news and the stuff that's coming out, and it may seem like almost like unbelievable. So that's basically through the next week. That's going to take you through next Sunday. Similar stuff's going on next Sunday. The opposition to Mercury and the square to Saturn makes me feel like if you're planning your week ahead, know that there is going to be probably some unforeseen delays and blockages and issues with traveling, communication, and things like that. When you guys are seeing, because Mercury is going to be in Sag for a while, okay, like clear into like, I think maybe even the end of December, maybe January. When you see the moon in Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, or even Virgo, okay, if you track the moon, because Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury are going to be in these signs, we're going to see weather events, we're going to see changes of schedule, we're going to see changes that's also going to be potentially happening, revolving around like, you know, coming and going, traveling, flying, driving, that kind of stuff. So just be mindful that that's in the air, and mutable scores mean there's going to be change. Something else I was kind of thinking about too. I was talking about this to one of my astrology friends. I don't know if you guys heard about this. I don't know. I don't remember what state it's in. So you guys are going to have to tell me in the comment section. If you guys have heard the news that broke this week, that there was like 40 monkeys that escaped from a bio lab, right? I know what you're thinking. You're like, 28 days later, or like, what is that movie, 12 Monkeys? I don't know, but it reminds me of like some of those plot lines where there's like a monkey that's been like exposed to something or infected with something or tested on, and then like they get out and then there's like this crazy disease. So just purely speculating, spitballing here, but stay with me, because the last time I was talking about diseases in monkeys, we had monkeypox, okay? And whether that was fact or fiction, that's neither here nor there, but I drew that conclusion from some of the retrogrades when Mercury was involved. I think it was in Virgo, and the squares to Jupiter, okay? So global news, Jupiter and Gemini, it was revolving around health stuff, and it ended up being monkeypox. All right, so these monkeys get out, and they said it's like 40-something monkeys. They're these like they're the smaller monkeys. They're not big monkeys. And they came out and they said, these are monkeys that have been tested on for vaccine trials. I know, terrible. I hate this stuff. And these monkeys got out. And so there's news anchors on the news in the local city or state where these monkeys got out, somewhere in the South. And they're saying, hey, the cops are out looking for the monkeys. If you see the monkeys, don't touch the monkeys. You have no contact with the monkeys. Stay inside, lock your doors. That's kind of weird. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, like, is this the event? Like, is this the thing that they start kind of putting out like before it ends up being like another like thing? And maybe it's just me being paranoid, but I was like, this is really suspicious. And so I've been looking at astrology, and I've been looking at this build up to Mercury at 18, opposing Jupiter at 18, with the moon, and if there's more news revolving around these monkeys that got out, right? And like this crazy story about, these monkeys that escaped this private testing facility, Pisces. And then the retrograde. So I'm following the story. I'm wondering if this is going to be like a psyop or another setup or something for scaring people into thinking that there is potentially this disease that originated from this. Giving me big Anthony Fauci vibes, giving me big like 1980s, 1990s like HIV trials vibes. Like that's what it's kind of giving me. And so I hope that I'm wrong, but something is giving me the heebie-jeebies about this. So if you guys have any information, leave it below. I'd love to hear about it. What do you guys think? We've got a retrograde, and Mercury does always deal with health, guys. It does deal with health. And I think that as we are actually getting ready to get into the next year, when we are going to have the South Node in Virgo, the North Node in Pisces, there is going to be more strange and unusual things that are going to be happening that's going to be impacting and affecting health. There can also be more miracles too. All right, so with that being said, let's talk Venus and Capricorn real quick before I let you guys go. As you guys know, I am a Western astrologer. That's the astrology that I practice, is Western astrology. I always show this to you guys in whole sign, and you can use whole sign for this method as well, because Venus is going to enter 0 degrees of Capricorn, and it'll go 0 to 29 degrees. So unless you're a Placidus user, you need to know where 0 degrees of Capricorn is in your chart. You can go through that. You can see where Venus is going. She's bringing you some kind of love, sweetness, and opportunity maybe to kind of strengthen something in the Capricorn area of your chart. Taurus, Libra, Capricorn, you guys are the ones that are going to be impacted the most. If you have a North or South node as well, if you have a natal Venus in Capricorn, you'll be having a Venus return pretty soon, which is kind of like the birthday for your Venus. Anyway, so I'm going to take you guys through the 12 signs, give you some insight as to what's going to happen with this transit, and where you're going to get a little bit of sweetness from Venus. All right, so for my Aries and Aries risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 10th house. So for all of you, this is going to be a point in time where there is much more focus and emphasis on 10th house things like your career, your public image. So the effect of having Venus in this house for you is that your career could benefit from having a little bit more charm or diplomacy. Romantic prospects may come through your professional sphere. It may be easier to land a job. You might be getting more recognition or support, or even a little bit more kind of coming your way financially from other people, while Venus is in this particular house. Now, I recommend working on your professional image. okay, and networking with an agenda for serious relationships. This can be great for really focusing on relationships with clients, one-on-one relationships, or changing your status in some way. It can also be really wonderful for trying to achieve some new goals that's going to be bringing you a higher income or more resources with Venus going through this particular house. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Your chart ruler is on the move. It's moving into the sign of Capricorn in your 9th house. And, you are Venus, so wherever Venus is generally what you're doing. Venus is in a fellow earth sign, so it will be trining or making aspects to you, Taurus, throughout this transit. Essentially, the 9th house is about philosophy. It can be about travel. It can be about education. So you're finding beauty, comfort, indulgence in these things. So, relationships can develop here with people from different cultures, or you can meet somebody while you're traveling or while you're taking a course or while you're doing some training. There can also be an attraction maybe to, connecting with people who are educators, teachers, mentors, that kind of stuff. Venus is going to be also about indulging. So you might be like, oh, I'm indulging in travel, right? I'm indulging in taking a course or some education. And it can also be that you're learning more, either skills revolving around work and career, or you're indulging in learning a little bit more about your health because of the connection with Venus and the 6th house. So you're more likely to say, yeah, I'll take a course, I'll take a class, maybe I'll spend a little bit more money when it comes to upgrading, to first class or something, something that's going to be beneficial for you. And I think you're going to enjoy the transit because it's supposed to be helping you kind of see the bigger picture when it comes to some of your long-term goals. And whether that's relationship or work related, it looks really positive. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to experience Venus transit in the sign of Capricorn, and this will be in your natal 8th house. This is the house of transformation and resources. So the good news is that with Venus going through the 8th house, you might be feeling a little bit more sexy. You might have access to resources. Your partner's income might be going through a little bit of a boost. It is possible that there is more emphasis on financial dealings with other people. So things like investments or inheritances can come up and kind of come into focus. And also a deep transformation of relationships. And Venus is connected to your 5th house. So it can be children, your creative process, lovers, romance, as well as the 12th house, which can be about your subconscious and things that are kind of more spiritual and otherworldly. So you might be feeling a little bit more romantic than usual, maybe daydreaming, creating a little bit, and feeling like optimistic about some financial opportunities that involve others. All right, so we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting the sign of Capricorn in your natal 7th house. Great transit. Venus loves being in the 7th house. So this is definitely putting an emphasis on pleasure, romance, connection, and relationships. Your marketplace. So if you have services or things that you sell, you can attract people and bring people in with this placement. I do feel like, Venus going through this house does put an emphasis on relationships that you have either from the past or people from the past, your relationship with your home or your relationship with like roommates or family members, as well as connecting with friends and family. So family or friends may play a role in meeting someone. So if you're single, Venus going through the 7th house, I would say dinner parties, gatherings, celebrations, family get-togethers can optimize and make it possible for you to meet someone. For committed relationships, this can actually just sweeten things and make it feel a little bit better. There can be some really significant kind of turning points in relationships with Venus going through the 7th square the nodes. So look for partners of fate, destiny, not just romantic, but also business or clients can be coming in here as well. All right, so we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Venus's transit through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 6th house. So for you guys, this is going through the area of your chart that deals with health and work, your workspace, as well as your relationship to fellow, employees. If you're looking for assistance, this is a good time to look for it. So if you want like a new healthcare provider, if you're looking for an assistant, if you're looking for a job, right, you might be sending out applications here. Maybe you're investing a little bit more in your health. Venus is connected to your 3rd house of communication, travel, and learning, as well as the 10th house, which deals with your professional life, your reputation, and visibility. So I like this for establishing better relationships with people in our workspace, for kind of like setting up an office, designing an office. Maybe you're hiring somebody to help you put together like a website or any kind of media. It's a good time to look for people for that. Otherwise, I think this is going to be more about, love and work go hand in hand. Venus in the 6th house is not an easy transit because sometimes we feel like relationships are a lot of work and there's like a lot of having to give to other people. But it ends up kind of materializing as really strengthening relationships most of the time when you go throughout this transit. So if you're looking for better health, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for maybe, a new pet, anything like that can be really wonderful. And if you're looking to meet someone, this would be like at the gym, right? Or at the doctor's office or meeting somebody at work. You're most likely to kind of find people in those places. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You'll be experiencing Venus's transit in the sign of Capricorn in your natal 5th house. Obviously, Venus is a fellow earth sign, so it'll be trining some of your aspects. So it's friendly for you. And Venus going through the 5th house is a very romantic transit. This is a transit that's about creativity, self-expression, dating, indulging, hanging out with younger people, socializing, kind of showing off a little bit. So it's a great transit. I do feel like romance can take more of a serious turn when it's in Capricorn in this part of your chart. You might start a relationship with someone from your professional life, and it can also be about engaging in projects with an eye for marketability. So be open to love that might start in a professional setting, and pay attention also to your creative hobbies and things that you're investing your time or your energy into. Venus rules money and resources for you, as well as your travel, learning, and beliefs. So your thoughts on children, dating, traveling, hobbies, self-expression, it all might be changing in some way. And truth be told, this is one of the better Venus transits. So I feel like if you're single, get out there, go places. The 5th house is going to be like bars, casinos, theaters, places where there are, people who are going and like entertaining, and you're likely to kind of meet somebody through that process. In the background, Saturn is the ruler and it's in your 7th. So relationships might be getting more serious and you're talking about serious topics like long-term commitment, children, and planning for the future. Good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You will be experiencing your chart ruler, Venus, entering into a new sign. It's going to be moving into Capricorn in your natal 4th house. Now, this is a sign that squares you, okay? So even though Venus is your chart ruler, going through the 4th house, it does have like this feeling that something is changing emotionally, with home, with family, on the home front in regards to property, domestic related matters. So what I will tell you is this. Venus going through the 4th house is generally a transit that's good if you're like, I want to decorate, I want to design, I want to find a new home, a new apartment. I want to go back home and visit family. I want to be focusing on my private life, like that it's good for. But the squares tell me that there is going to be something that's coming up for you, Libra, where you are making a life-changing decision about the future of your home, your emotions, your living situation, or your family. And likely, because this is ruled by Saturn and Saturn is in the 6th, it's going to be about the relationship that you have with relatives, how that's impacting or influencing you health-wise, or whether you're having to help, assist, make a sacrifice for someone, or big changes revolving around like your emotional health and your relationship with your home and your family. Still, buying art, designing, bringing in new beautiful things into your space, visiting family, getting the home ready for the holidays. These are things you can do with Venus in the 4th house. But be mindful that there is something definitely stirring here that is kind of saying, okay, there's like a change that's kind of coming on the home front. And it's about how you're navigating, taking, I think, the lead in making some of those changes. Venus is also connected at the 8th house of other people's money. So it can mean that families gifting you things, giving you things. It could mean that you're changing or transforming something about mortgages or lending, or you're selling property, or there's money coming in somehow. And that's influencing also the changes that are going to be happening with your home. Okay. All right. So we have got Scorpio and Scorpio rising.
you'll be experiencing Venus's transit through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 3rd house. So Venus going through the 3rd house for you is definitely bringing themes up revolving around communication, your local community, siblings, cars, maybe indulgence purchases. Like I could see Venus in the 3rd is like getting a new phone, getting a computer, or a desktop or a tablet. Venus is connected to your 7th house and your 12th house. So a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings, if you are single, get on the apps this week, okay, or the next couple of weeks. 3rd house can be applications. If you're trying to meet people, go to some local hangouts and spots, some bookstores, maybe some coffee shops. Venus connecting to relationships means that if you're either on the move, going for walks, in your community, traveling, you'll meet someone. And what I like about this is that, Venus is an aspect to Saturn. So there can also be some serious conversations, heart-to-heart discussions about children, things revolving around your inner child, things revolving around your feelings and like commitment. These conversations can come up in person or while you're traveling. So Venus in the 3rd house is definitely a good time if you're going on a short distance trip, if you're getting out of town, if you're doing anything like that. Maybe if not, you're indulging a little bit in learning and you're taking a course or you're buying a gadget or something relating to a new hobby. Regardless, relationships, I think here grow through communication or education. So aim for clear, structured conversations. And I think it's like a good time to be learning valuable lessons about relationships, and it's coming from the conversations that you're having with other people. Okay. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You'll be experiencing Venus transiting the sign of Capricorn in your natal 2nd house. Well, Sag, this is a good transit because this can definitely bring some money. It can bring more stability when it comes to resources, more work, right? So if you're seeking stability or employment, that can happen. Venus is connected to your 6th house of health, wellness, and routine, as well as pets, and your 11th house of goals, friends, and allies. So Venus going through the 2nd house means that work support, social support, financial support, that can come from friends or people at work. It also means that you're really focusing on goals when it comes to your finances and what you're hoping to achieve at work or with your spending or, your saving habits. And when Venus goes through the 2nd house, we want to indulge. We're more likely to buy the finer wine, get the higher end product. We're looking for luxury. We're looking to really kind of indulge. And it might mean that you're just working harder because there are certain things that you want. And I do feel like for you, this is a really big turning point now that Pluto is leaving your 2nd house. So there's some change going on with your financial situation, and it's impacting the way that you're spending or what you're actually, purchasing. Ruled by Saturn. Saturn's in your 4th, so it does look like it's connected to home, family, property related money, expenses connecting to real estate, maybe things that you're buying from your home, maybe money stuff that's connected to family and they're giving you things or what you're kind of investing in, or if you have to make an expensive purchase for your home, right? That can be kind of happening here as well. Good luck. Well, we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising, who is going to have Venus going through their signs. So it's bringing you a little bit more beauty, attraction, allure, a little bit more sensuality than usual. You're going to kind of have that sparkle. The 1st house is the identity and the body. So there's definitely a sense of really redefining your aesthetic or your personal style with this transit. Definitely a professional touch, so I can see that being the case. But I do think that you're focusing on being seen at work, self-improvement, enhancing your public persona, having a little bit of a, maybe a little bit of an upgrade, you guys are having a glow up. Pluto's leaving your sign. Venus is connected to your 10th. I mean, this is where you're getting noticed and recognized. You might change something about your public status. You might change a user photo. Maybe you're getting new work headshots. Something like that can happen. And Venus is also connected to the 5th house, which is about creativity, self-expression. So I feel like you feel like you're in the driver's seat when it comes to your love life or dating, or you're feeling more confident or more assertive. Maybe it means that you're really enjoying the fact that you're participating more in something that's creative and that's really shining, when you're kind of out and about. And you'll find that people are going to be more interested and attracted to you
with this placement. And just generally overall, I think maybe you're feeling a little bit more romantic because of the connection to your 5th house. And we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising, who will be experiencing Venus transiting Capricorn in the 12th. What I can say about this is that there are pros and cons. Okay, so the 12th house obviously is like subconscious, it's behind the scenes, it's private, it's endings. So, you know, yes, there can be some significant changes and things going on revolving around home, family, and relationship to maybe parents. But we've also got the connection to the 9th house. So I kind of see this as, well, some of you guys might be getting out of the house. You're going and traveling and visiting people further away. Maybe you're traveling in general. You're in like a foreign place. Maybe this is about rest and retreats and spas and hotels and kind of indulging behind the scenes, resting and recuperating. But there can be themes revolving around closure, especially within relationships. And it can be like a subconscious like pull towards solitude and spiritual growth. So some of you guys might be reflecting on the past loves. You know, I just recommend engaging in activities that are going to be about peace and self-understanding. Find a private space where you can rest, meditate, maybe create a little bit behind the scenes. And like that's going to be something that's going to be very inspirational for you, or something that's going to just feel like it's just kind of flowing, right? Good luck, Aquarius. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing Venus's transit through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 11th house. So this is friendships, goals, networking, right? So obviously friendships could become more beneficial. They could turn into business partnerships. Friends could have a connection for you business-wise. Some of you guys may decide to join professional groups or associations during this transit, and you can use this time to align your personal goals with your ambition. Now, Venus is connected to wealth and other people, and resources and access to other people. So this can be a time where you're rubbing elbows with some prestigious people, people who have money, people who might want to get you into private groups, networks, and clubs, things that can really help kind of boost your status. And Venus is also connected to your 3rd house. So it can be a local club. It can be something connecting to learning, like a private learning club. It can be about writing. It could also be somehow kind of connected to maybe finance, something like that, because it's Taurus. But I do feel like it could also be online. It doesn't have to be in person. So maybe there's going to be like a connection, an email, an introduction, an invitation to go to an event, something like that can be happening, which can be really beneficial for making it likely for you to not only, you know, do business, but also like have some socializing opportunities and have some kind of pleasure time as well. Okay. So I hope that's helpful for you guys in navigating, obviously, the week ahead, the Venus in Capricorn transit, the full moon, all that stuff. So there's definitely a whole host of things that are happening. If you guys have not already, click the bell button. Please do subscribe to the channel. You guys are helping me get so much closer to 40,000. We're getting there. It would be cool to hit that before the end of the year. So please subscribe, because I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. I will be breaking down some of the major upcoming transits, like Pluto back in Aquarius. We're going to talk about Mercury retrograde. We're also going to be talking about, you know, all of the lunations and some of the bigger themes that are going to be happening in 2025. So you don't want to miss that. You guys can always find lots and lots of long format, high quality educational content on my channel. Because I'm a full-time content creator, that's what I do for you guys. I like to teach astrology and also connect with you guys on YouTube. So thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Enjoy the week ahead, and I'm excited to see what kind of manifests. And yeah, leave me your guys' comments below. I love to hear from you guys. I've gotten so many people who have already sent me messages and said happy birthday. So I'm just going to tell you guys now, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm turning 35 this year on 11/11. So I'll be celebrating with all of you guys this week because many of you guys are going to get the day off. So enjoy that 3-day weekend, and I will catch you guys back here throughout this next week. Until next time, take care.